Minutes of 12/8/2021. Anybody have any edits, modifications, corrections?
I have a couple of small ones. Let's see if I got this right. Line 95. Let me go back, make sure that I'm up to date here. It says, Mr. Dowdy explained the work that has completed. I think mean that it has to be completed, right?
That has been completed.
It has been completed.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Because they were talking about how the as-bills had been submitted and the certificate of compliant requests had been put in.
Oh, okay, like the septic system installation. Okay, all right. So it has.
I'll put it in Ben. Yep.
Okay, all right. And then let's see. 104 is let's see, made at. It says made at. Is that previous meetings?
Yeah, I can put in previous.
Yeah. Just to make sure that point is made. It. Let's see.
What's the whole line read now?
That what is in the document is a reiteration of what was previously addressed and some general comments that were made at previous meetings and not new material.
Oh.
So before it just said meet at meetings and not new material.
Okay, maybe previous is redundant, but you know, but it drives, it's clear, I guess. All right, and 171. Let's see if I get this. He says where the fence could be installed, it needs to stay within the 20-foot buffer zone. Is that right?
I think which one is this? Temporal. So
I don't remember, but I don't usually.
Yeah, I think it needs to stay at or outside the 20
outside.
foot.
Okay, all right. Because I didn't remember us telling somebody to put a fence inside the 20-foot. All right, that's it. That's all.
Okay. Got him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
Breakneck was missing a K on 289. Carl,
Those
I'm
breakneck.
kind of disappointed. I really thought you would have gotten that one.
Well, I missed that one. Huh?
That's your topic.
Yeah, I know.
Dick Upjohn missed nothing. He was an English teacher.
Yeah. Whew.
Any others? No? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Muted.
Okay.
All in favor by a roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Osmato.
Yes.
All right.
All right, first up, 7 p.m. Request for determination of applicability. 1 Brookside Road, map 15, lot 51. Construction of a 14 by 28 deck and renovation of an existing deck. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for a project located at 1 Brookside Road, map 15, lot 51 to the applicant, George Pocketel, pardon the pronunciation. The project description is construction of a 14 by 28 deck and renovation of an existing deck. Do we have anybody here representing the applicant?
Yes, the homeowner is here. I believe he's in a panelist. I don't see the contractor as of right now, but I can get us started in the meantime. So this is a Mark mentioned, a renovation of existing deck and addition of new deck. So I uploaded a couple photos from earlier just to show the general property. So this one's a little bit interesting as it does have a sort of stream that kind of runs through the property. And I believe the current owner has purchased the property in 2002. There is a small crossing over the stream, and that's been there at least since 1995, from what I can see from aerial photos. And the other side of the stream has always been a kind of maintained lawn area as well. So they are essentially just trying to add this deck. It will kind of be congruent with the house, and I can share this quickly. So this is where that stream actually is. This is where it's mapped on Mass GIS. This is like where the little footbridge is, and this is where the new deck will be going. So we have a proposal of some straw wattles here. It is all maintained lawn, and there'll be 11 footings, I believe, for the new deck, and that would be the only site disturbance.
All hand dug?
I believe so. Oops. I don't know, George, are you able to unmute yourself? I still don't see Bruno on the attendees. Okay. They unmuted.
All right. In the meantime, anybody have any questions or comments?
The homeowner also in an email to me before the meeting stated that if the commission was looking for some mitigation for this project, he was amenable to putting in 5 to 10 native plantings to help do some offset. I don't think it's necessarily required due to the kind of history of the site with the maintained lawn, but it's up to the commission to decide if they would like to see some of that extra mitigation.
This is just a deck upgrade, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't have any other concerns going to the property. There weren't any piles of leaves or anything like that.
How old is the house?
I believe the 50s, maybe a little bit later, but it's definitely an older house.
Thank
You
you.
can probably check. Mhm.
Okay. I'm leaning towards a negative determination with some conditions around erosion controls. I'd be interested to understand how they're going to dig the footings, but we could probably condition that to have minimal, what would you call it, Russ? Shallings or whatever comes out of the hole?
Tailings.
Tailings, thank you.
Tailings, yeah.
You know, to protect them from running amok.
Yeah, I believe it is just hand dug because they're just kind of regular base wood to concrete kind of footings.
Any other discussion on this? No, okay. Do I hear a motion for a negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor via roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes,
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, so George, I hope you can hear us. I'll follow up with you tomorrow morning, but you are all set. I will sign off on the building permit and you can talk with your contractor.
Okay, next up, 705 One Willow Street. This is also a request for determination of applicability, and this is demolition and removal of an abandoned home. In accordance with Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7:05 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for determination for a project located at 1 Willow Street, map 48, lot 1, for the applicant Dwayne Recking. That's appropriate for what's going to happen here. The project description is demolition of removal of an abandoned dwelling. Mr. Recking is going to wreck the building.
Yes, so I don't see Dwayne here in the attendees, but we have the landowner. Oh, I think they might be under a different name. Hold on 1 second. So essentially, they are abandoning demolishing an abandoned building. I'm just going to share the GIS kind of overlay. I think that's the easiest to really tell what's going on. So this is that building here. The kind of drainage ditch that they're talking about in the report is this kind of right here that ends up leading to this BBW across the entranceway. So it it's kind of just grass right now. So they just want to demolish the building, backfill the foundation, and then loam and seed.
Is that the old Hendry's building on the left behind the house?
This one?
Right.
Yes, if I could jump in, this is John Hennessy with Equity Industrial Partners. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, it is the old Hendry's building. It's
Okay.
occupied by EFI. It's a energy alternative company, and Harvey Windows. And there's also another outbuilding that has a glazing company in it. And that building, we purchased it in 2008, and that building has never been occupied as far as we know. So I think it's in disrepair, and we'd like to get rid of it.
Okay. I'm scratching the back of my head here because when the renovations were done to that building, we were all over the site. And I remember the culverts and things, and I'm trying to.
I have a little bit of background on it.
Okay, go ahead. Maybe it'll jog my memory.
The way you showed it the road crossing earlier with your cursor, there was a culvert right there that again was in disrepair. We took over the building and we were in compliance. We brought it in compliance probably 2009, 2010. And to the best of my knowledge, things are fine there. It's a small culvert. The water runs seasonally through there. It's not a constant water runoff, obviously with Route 9 right around the corner and the tracks right there. But
That's right. It goes under the tracks too, right?
correct.
Yeah. Okay. I remember this now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just for other reference, there seems to be two larger culverts, one about right here and one that comes this way, I think probably taking from the Willow Street side, that stream that goes near the tracks.
Okay. And you're just going to demolish the home and that's it?
Correct. We have no intention of doing anything else. It's just, it's a well-tenanted building, and I believe it's been requested that we put in meadow grass or flower mix, and half of it let nature take its course. We're happy to do that as well.
All seems reasonable to me. Any other comments, questions from commission members?
I assume you're gonna fill in the foundation, right? You're taking the foundation out and filling it in. That's what you're doing?
Yes, sir. Taking it out, backfilling it. We'll probably use, I'm not sure whether we're going to use organics, that loam that's locally, probably the case, and reseed. It is of no use to us, and probably what the lawyers like to call an attractive nuisance.
When do you plan on doing the work?
As soon as we pass muster with your group and get a permit to demo. There was, as typical of houses of this age, there is some asbestos that was abated. We have done that, had a hygienist clear the space. We can certainly provide that that information, but basically it's just a clean deserted cape that will be down in a matter of days and back. We are removing the foundation, so there'll be nothing left. There was a mention, I believe in, Melissa, it might've been from you that there was you were concerned about a wire.
Yeah, there's just, I think the electrical cable is coming diagonal off the back of the house and kind of going into the ground.
I believe that's prior to our ownership. I haven't been in that building in 10 plus years. We just secured it, but it was terminated at the pole and at the house itself, and that's going to be removed as well. It is.
Okay.
Hello?
Toby,
Oh,
nice you
sorry,
to join
I
us.
was
That's
having-
Toby Duane from Duane Wrecking.
Sorry, I had a little bit of problem getting on at the very beginning. The wire was disconnected. I went out there today and followed it. When it was originally disconnected, when the building became unoccupied, it was cut from the pole over by a bridge, and it's just laying under some dirt, accumulated debris. But it's definitely off. I tested it. It's
I just didn't want to pull too hard.
yeah. I get it.
Understandable. But again, pretty straightforward removal. We're in favor of either the wetlands mix of grass or and then the natural return, if you will, of the I assume that would be against the parking lot. We would put the meadow mix and then let nature run its course interior of that. Is my understanding correct?
Let me share the aerial and see, so we can make sure we're on the same page. I was kind of thinking, I guess it depends what you want the maintenance to be in the future. If you just kind of want to not have to mow this area, even just kind of letting it kind of revegetate in this halfway part to where the house is, or even just where you're going to be clearing and with the new loam, having just the wildflower mix in that general area. So I don't know what the commission's thought, if they had a preference either way, or if you have a preference either way in terms of maintenance.
If the question's to me, the maintenance, what we typically do in this application when it's landscaped on the top side of this picture because it drops off considerably. Over here, our interest would be just to mow it back 4 or 5 feet. If it's a mix of wildflowers, it looks good. It's no maintenance, and let nature run its course to the right of the house is fine with us. I would defer to you guys what you think is best.
I'm fine with that. The only concern I really have at this point is, demolishing the house now and filling in the cellar hole. It's not going to grow anything now until, end of April. Right. So we're going to have a open dirt rectangle there for a number of months. That'll be snow covered and frozen until it's not. We need to protect, that stream there that runs down to the BVW from any sort of, runoff from the construction area or the demolition area from getting into that. Right. So between now and when you finally have something that's grown that can stabilize the area, there's going to have to be a lot of due diligence around making sure that the siltation remedies are maintained.
Understood. And
or
agreed.
wait and knock the house down in April.
There's no real urgency to it. We'd like to get it down, but I understand your concerns, and what we could do is maintain the erosion control. It's relatively flat right there. It starts to drop off right and top of this picture right here. I think it'll be stable. And we'd like to proceed with it, but if that's a big concern, we can wait. But the house has been there for years, put it that way. We would like to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's probably not going to fall down in the next 4 months.
Like I said, I haven't been in it in 10 years.
I don't want to go in it.
Yeah.
I don't know what other commission members think. I mean, I don't know how frozen in the ground is to get stakes in it to get the siltation, mitigation in the ground and stabilize so that it's going to be reliable for, weeks and months.
I would agree. This is a pretty flat site, so I think even a decent sized compost tube would be sufficient for stabilization aspect, as long as they get a good horseshoe around it. If they do take it down more recent.
I guess my suggestion would be that we would condition that. And if they want to do this sooner than later, that we make sure that the siltation measures are, installed properly and then well maintained until the site is stabilized.
Agreed.
Any other commission members have comments?
Only that I've used those compost tubes and I really like them. They're beefy. They're gonna hang in there nice. So the money spent up front is well worth it. No maintenance after the fact.
So you're saying they'll last?
Certainly through this winter. They'd be well into next year before they start deteriorating.
Okay. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, and I think the unique aspect of it is we're coming up, this is all going to be removed on the asphalt side of things. So the term horseshoe really comes into effect. We're going to get that around the lot right there. I think it's a pretty easy demo and we'd like to proceed with. So what is the appeal period anyway? Is it 20 days? With
21.
21. And then we would file for a permit. So we're at the end of January anyway. So I think we'd be undertaking this in early February. So.
Okay. Thinking negative determination here again?
Yep.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor via roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Heat,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Wasserman.
Yes.
All right.
All right, thank
I
you.
will follow up with you tomorrow, Toby, with the permit.
Thank you
can
very
forward
much.
along.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up, 710, Lot 2, Burnett Road, map 50, lot 23. Construction of a new single-family home. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6th, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 2 Burnett Road, map 50, lot 23, for the applicant Whitney Street Home Builders, LLC. The project description is construction of a new single-family home. And we do not have a DEP number yet, so we'll have to continue.
Yeah, is there anyone on the applicant side that's here for this project? If you can, use the raise hand feature for me and I'll promote you up. There we go.
Okay, I think we're on. Yeah, thank you, John Grenier, JM Grenier Associates. I'm here with Jim Benincasa, who is the applicant for this proposed notice of intent. What we are proposing is a construction of a single-family home on a 50,000 square foot lot that is going to front on Burnett Road. So what we are proposing is this 4-bedroom colonial style home. It would have a garage loaded on the front right of it. And it would have a walkout in the back. So there will be some fill for the front yard. And then that would step down to meet grade along the rear portion beyond a proposed patio. So we are staying outside of the 20-foot no disturb zone. That would be right behind the house is the closest point to the 20-foot no disturb. And that's where we would be placing our erosion control, which would be straw wattles and silt fence at the limit of work. And there would be serviced by a septic system, which would be placed closest to the frontage on Burnett Road. And that would be in a fill area. So it will be a raised system, but it would be flush with the lawn area. It won't be mounded because it would be in a slight fill area along the frontage. For stormwater controls, what we are proposing is to capture the roof runoff and recharge that into the ground using storm tech type recharge chambers. And then in order to capture and treat the driveway runoff, what we are proposing is a crushed stone filter strip. So that would sheet flow any runoff from the paved surfaces to the east, and that would be captured along the side of the driveway. And that's a fairly substantial crushed stone filter strip. So that would be able to capture and recharge runoff and make sure that there's no untreated water that's going to be going overland and down towards the resource area that's located on the north side of the lot. During construction as well, we would be having a stone apron where the driveway curb cut would be, so that we're not tracking any material onto Burnett Road during construction. I think that's the long and short of it. Again, we are waiting for a DEP file number. I know we have to continue the hearing. But if there's any questions or comments the commission has, we'd like to address them so that we can make sure we take care of that before the next hearing.
Oh, Mark, you're on mute, sorry.
Is that better?
You're usually the best one out of all of us.
Yeah, so I said thank you. And Joe from Luke's Environmental, do you have any comments you want to share at this time?
I went to the site this afternoon, took a look. It's a wooded site. As you can see from the site plan, it's fairly steep. So certainly during construction and afterward, the erosion control will be critical. I did review quickly the delineation, and I thought it looked pretty good. There were a couple of flags I would recommend a little bit of adjustment on. One I thought was about 5 feet too low, and then there were a couple that I thought might be about 5 to 10 feet a little high, actually. But other than that, I haven't had a chance to really go through the filing material at this point. But those are my comments regarding the site investigation today.
All right, thank you. Any commission members have comments, questions? Sherry, did you raise your hand?
I did, but I saw Ben on mute. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Okay. So I walk this area, so I'm kind of very familiar with this lot. So I guess I have some questions and concerns with the steep slope. The fact that during construction, I think it's going to be really important to maintain the erosion controls. I almost want to say that you might want to consider an interior one as you work your way towards building the house. It's a really steep area there, especially as you go up the hill. Has there been any consideration for when you cut in the driveway or the construction pad, if the road runs off into there, what are you going to do to manage that water?
You know, that is a good comment. It obviously is a steep slope. We're going to be placing quite a bit of fill. What we have done in the past, which has also worked well, is when the trees get cut and they get chipped, as in addition to the the wattles and the hay bales is to have like a berm of the wood chippings, which that has worked well on a number of other projects where it provides a good sturdy physical barrier. The other way that we have made sure that there's no issues with runoff, particularly when we're filling, is as we're filling the site to compact it, to make sure that it's less apt to get saturated and rut out. So as they're filling it with the excavator, they can compact the soil with the bucket. Sometimes if it's a flat area, particularly in the front, they'll put a small roller on there. So that kind of keeps the soil from getting saturated and then rutting and then blowing out. So those are some other methods that we've used in the past, but I do, I can understand the concern, especially where it's a steep slope and we are placing fill on there. But those are some other items that we've done in the past that's worked well, just to beef up the erosion control and then make sure that the soil is compacted so it doesn't get saturated and rut out.
Well, I love the idea of the chips and putting that around. I've got a couple of sites that I've seen that on, that it works lovely. So I'd be an advocate of that here.
A couple years ago, I did it was a 26 unit condo complex, and the site contractor, he beefed up the erosion control. And again, it was similar type, obviously it was a much larger site, but it was quite a bit of earth removal and filling. We even had a wetland crossing, and they did that. And we never had one issue with erosion control getting breached or anything like that. So, and I could add that into my sediment and erosion control measures as well. So it's specifically laid out depending on who the contractor is.
Yeah, I'd be an advocate to see that either as a condition or in your plan. Because
I'd rather add it to the plan just so it's spelled out.
Yep. My other question or comment, and maybe that's more to throw toward the commission, is the location of this patio and how close you are to the 20-foot no disturbance. It really doesn't leave a lot of backyard for this homeowner after the fact. That is there any ability to shift that or whatnot to allow them to have an area to play in so that they're not eventually down the road saying that they want to cut into the 20-foot no disturbance and now we're dealing with an after the fact violation?
I can address that partially. We do have a small retaining wall on the back side of that patio. Where the walkout is, they want to have a patio if it's a walkout. But I did leave to the left side of the house a flat area off to the left side for a swing set, an area where the kids can run around and play if there's a family. So it doesn't work on the other side where the garage side is because that's a consistent slope. But I did try to leave a flat area for some flat yard area for kids and swing sets and whatnot. But there would be a physical barrier with a small retaining wall off the back side of the patio. So I think that's kind of people will be less apt to get ambitious and try to expand their yard that way. If there's a small 3.5 foot retaining wall off the back of the patio.
Okay, thank you. My last comment, just to go back to the road. If during construction you find that the road is running off into the site, do you have plans to address with DPW or engineering to possibly have them address that drainage because it's more like sheet flow there? Maybe put in a catch basin, something like that, so that the homeowners down the road don't have to deal with that. Has there been thought of that, I guess?
In all honesty, no. But if I'm not opposed to, if there is something, where we have water coming down Burnett and running into the site, doing something to whether we put up maybe some type of curbing or berm so it's not running into the site. We're going to grade the driveway to make sure that water's not going to come from Burnett and rip down the driveway because it's a front-loaded garage. But if there's other areas, we're not opposed to talking to DPW and maybe doing something with like a Cape Cod berm or an asphalt berm, which by the time we're ready to pave the driveway, that's when that would be done. And so we would know if there's, at that point, if there's any issues.
Yeah, just something I was noting that you might want to think about.
Sure, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. With regards to the 20-foot, especially in a situation as tight as this, there's always the tendency of folks to try to enlarge their yards a little bit. What we typically ask for is some sort of monumentation on the 20-foot. We try to leave a lot of flexibility for the property owners, but in the past, we've done things ranging from pheno stakes to fencing to strategically placed boulders, but something to monument the 20-foot no disturb, just to try to prevent future encroachment. So maybe you could think about that prior to our next meeting. And then my other comment is more just a quick question. With the rooftop runoff, the storm tip chamber, was that size, an inch of runoff, or I understand it's the maximum extent practicable, but is there a basis behind the sizing of the unit?
Typically we'll try to route a 1 inch through to make sure that it can handle that. But
Okay.
Let me double check on that. I got to talk to the other engineer in my office to see what he did for sizing on that. I'm not 100% sure.
I will say the preference is certainly, this is tributary to outstanding resource water. So I think the preference would be if it can accommodate 1 inch of runoff for the impervious area.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Does this one trigger stormwater? It was probably indicated somewhere, but
It does not. We don't meet the percentage of the lot or the area threshold.
thank you.
Okay, we're gonna have to continue because we do not have a DEP number. So we'll continue this in the next meeting, so.
Do you want
The
to ask
applicant takes due note of the comments. So next meeting, you come prepared with responses. That would be a good
Okay.
thing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, do I hear a motion to continue to the meeting of January 27th?
Mark, will you do public comment first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget that. If there's anybody from the public that would like to comment on this, raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
I don't see any hands.
Okay. Then back to looking for a motion to continue.
So moved.
A second,
Second,
all in favor via roll call vote.
Watson,
yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer. Sorry,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Basmato.
Yes. Okay, next up is,
Very much.
thank you. 8 Shipper Farm Road. This is a wetland boundary confirmation. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southwood Wetlands Bylaw, the Southwood Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 8 Shipper Farm Lane, map 81, lot 22, for the applicant Bruce Hall. The project description is confirmation of resource area boundaries. Again, we don't now have a DEP number for this as yet. But I believe our consultant, Joe from Lucas Environmental, has been out there.
That's correct. As we discussed last time, there were no issues with the delineation. But after having looked at the site previously, I realized that the delineation plan didn't show the entire lot, and I hadn't looked at the entire lot when I was out there. So I went out there again today, did a quick look at the rest of the lot to make sure there were no surprises with any other wetlands or on site or near the site, and didn't find any, so everything looked fine.
Okay, thank you. I guess because we don't have a DEP number, we have to continue until we get the number.
Great. This is Brian Waterman. I'm the wetland specialist from WDA Design Group. As Joe pointed out, we walked the site on December 21st with the wetlands that are on this southeast side of the property. But correct, we have no DEP file number, so we will need to continue.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Somebody speaking?
Joe, through the chair.
Yeah, good.
Just wanted to make a correction. Brian, I think the date we looked at that was the 20th, not the 21st, just to make sure that the records are correct.
Oh, I will double check that. I had the 21st. So you're probably right, though. Thank you, Joe.
Do you want to do public comment, Mark?
Sure. I can't imagine there is any.
There's the raise hand feature if you're interested, and I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay. Do you hear a motion to continue to the meeting of on January 27th?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor via roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes,
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Osvaldo.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next up is request for determination of applicability, 14 Ledge Hill Road, map 74, lot 15, removal of an existing shed, construction of a new shed, and lawn expansion with associated mitigation. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the South Shore Wetlands Bylaw, the South Shore Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7:25 p.m. Via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for determination for a project located at 14 Ledge Hill Road, map 74, lot 15. The applicant Benjamin Smith and Anna Rudnicki.
Correct.
The project description is removal of existing shed, yard expansion, construction of a new shed, and associated mitigation.
Thank you. Now the tables have turned. Melissa, would you do the honors and pull up the plan? Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, we moved into our new house.
You got to back up, Ben. Are you the applicant?
Yes, I'm the applicant.
So you need to recuse yourself from the commission.
Yes, I'm recusing myself from this matter and serving as my own representative for work at our property.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we moved in November of last year, and we're sort of in the process of making the place fit our family. So our lot is about 1.5 acres. About 0.9 acres of that are wooded, and roughly 5,600 square feet appears to be bordering vegetated wetland. Because this is an RDA filing, the BVW was not delineated by a wetland scientist. It's shown approximately. I think the area shown in the plan, which is on the lower side in the center, is I think it's shown fairly conservatively, and the actual BVW is probably quite a bit smaller than what's shown. Melissa was kind enough to make a site visit, and she can describe what she saw. But nonetheless, because of this, we're not seeking any kind of confirmation on the delineation. What we propose to do is this all started with a patio behind the house. It's a concrete paver patio, and it's about 30 years old and really showing its age. So we want to replace that with a stone patio. You can see that in doing so, we're moving it out of the approximate area of the buffer zone entirely, reducing impervious area within the buffer zone. There are some proposed plantings there, all plantings within the buffer zone, and I think all the plantings, with one exception, are native species, but everything within the buffer zone is native. As part of this, the patio was really the driver for this, but we thought we might as well take care of some other issues. The big one being the shed down at the bottom of the center of the plan. You don't really see it by looking at a piece of paper, but the shed is effectively a shed-shaped pond. There's 18 inches of standing water underneath it. It's the strangest thing. There's a seep that comes out of the adjacent stone wall there and runs generally downhill towards the shed, and then goes away towards the left in the plan. You can, if you look at the contours, you can see the sort of vague channel that things flow down, and then the seep just sort of disappears. So we have this sort of wet area. Nonetheless, it's clearly a wetland, whether it's BVW or isolated, not really, doesn't really matter either way. So we propose to remove the shed. The shed would be removed by hand. All the materials from the removal will be hand carried up to a dumpster in the driveway. And then a new shed of the same approximate dimensions we propose to build in the area shown on the left-hand side of the plan, sort of in the center, top to bottom. And then finally, to get a little bit of, back down in the area of the existing shed, boy, the plan's a little bit faded, but there's a lawn area that runs down towards the shed. So what we propose to do is I wrote proposed edge of woods here on the plan to let that area of, oh geez, I forget how many square feet it is, but about 1,900 square feet of lawn just revegetate and become woods over time. And then to the left of the proposed patio area, we propose to take down, yes, thank you, Melissa, an area of woods to let a little bit of light in. The area, 1,080 square feet of woods would be removed from the buffer zone. I think that's more than balanced out by the lawn that we would allow to revegetate right down within and adjacent to the BVW itself. The reason we're filing as an RDA is that all of the work with the potential for disturbing the ground, it's actually hydraulically isolated from the BVW. If you look at where the existing patio is, Melissa has highlighted it. There's a ridge that runs down the center of the property, and it appears to have been from backfilling the septic system back in 1982. But that ridge sends all drainage sort of up and to the left as you look at the plan, so that nothing makes its way down to the BVW. But nonetheless, proposing straw wattles, if nothing else, to delineate the limit of work and to prevent any kind of creep. Let me see. And, finally, we don't expect any overnight stockpiling materials, but on the off chance it does happen, there's a designated stockpile area. And that's what we're proposing.
Excuse me. Okay. Anybody have any comments from the commission?
What is the old shed sitting on right now? I'm not sure I got it. Other than
It's
18 inches of water, how's that?
Oh, so it looks.
It floats.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's been jacked up through time, and it's on cinder blocks. And I just have this mental picture that, it's 4 or 5 cinder blocks that have been slowly been pushed down into the ground over the years. I don't know. But it's resting on cinder blocks. So the removal of it can be done, by hand. And then there are no footings to excavate. Simply take out cinder blocks, visible at the surface, and be done with it.
In the new shed, is that going to be purchased as a unit and moved out there, or built by stick, or what do you do?
No, I'll build it in place.
Okay.
Will the new shed have footings, or will it be on cinder blocks again?
It'll be on, I can't think of what the brand name of these things are, but it's a flat footing. You typically excavate out about 12 inches deep, fill it with a little bit of crushed stone, and sit a 12-inch by 12-inch concrete block on top of it that you're joists and sill sort of rest into, and then build from there. So there'll be a total of between 8 and 12 of these, small excavations filled with crushed stone, and then a concrete block placed on each. Hand dug.
And does your erosion control barrier stop there where it says straw water control barrier with the arrow? Does it stop right there?
It does, just because that's sort of the edge of the limit of work. And as I said, everything is already hydraulically, it's cut off. It's there as much to mark a limit of work. I mean, if the commission wanted it to extend further, obviously we can do that. But that's why that's ended there.
Yeah, Melissa, can you shift the drawing to the right so we can see the new shed? Or I can see the new shed. Yeah, so it's at 393 with 392 on each side, right? So
yeah, so the shed, I'm sorry, you're talking about the shed now.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's perched on top of this sort of ridge area. I'd be more than happy to encircle it with straw wattles.
Yeah, it might be good where you're gonna excavate a foot down.
Yeah, oh no, more than happy to.
Yeah. And it goes down on each side from there, so. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I got one question for Ben. Since it's his project, I'll test this out on him. I was reading, I don't know why I was reading about erosion control barriers, but usually they recommend that at the end of the erosion control barrier, and since this kind of slopes down in one area, that you hook it to prevent anything from going around the corner. Right? Is that a standard practice? You know what I'm talking about? That you instead of just stopping it,
yeah.
you put it.
I understand what you're saying. I haven't seen it with a fish hook type hook on the end of it, but certainly tying into
down the side of it. Like yours is on a little slope there. You could go down the side, and I don't know if it goes back up the hill or not. I can't tell, but
Well, that's the that erosion control barrier shown on the plan is nothing is flowing towards it. In other words, everything's flowing from the barrier towards the work. It's there more as a limit of work, if that makes sense.
Okay.
If you look at the elevation on the contours.
I see. Okay. All right.
That all flows away.
Yeah, but just in general, is that a practice that would be a good idea for erosion? This is more not specifically to your project, but the projects in general.
In an area where you can't tie the erosion controls into some sort of hard barrier, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And to follow up on that, oh, sorry, Carl. I would say in sites where it does have the proper elevations where it could essentially navigate its way around, I do make them make that hook.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So it is commonly done. That makes sense.
I just don't remember us ever talking about making them do a hook, right? So
it's more of something I think you realize once you're putting them in and inspecting, then on paper, you don't necessarily catch it as well.
Thanks, Ben, for putting up with that. Thank you.
I should say the construction of the shed is not going to necessarily be taking place at the same time as the work on the patio. So Melissa has made a recommendation that she inspect the erosion controls prior to work starting. So I'm certainly open to having a separate inspection for when I get started on the shed. I will say the shed removal, there's a chance that could take place in the next 2 weeks. I'm in the middle of a kitchen remodel also, for which I'll probably be renting a dumpster, so I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Got a lot of projects.
Yep. Long list.
Okay, any other comments from the commission members? Okay, again, I'm thinking negative determination with conditions. I don't know if there's anybody from the public that has any comments on this application. If so, raise your hand.
Not seeing any.
Okay. Okay, do I hear a motion for a negative determination of applicability?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes,
Gregory,
Yes,
Wittes,
Yes.
Rossamato.
Yes.
All right.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Lovely plan.
Thank you.
I'm going to save that one. My reference plan.
Okay. Dust off my 20-year-old copy of AutoCAD.
Are you rejoining the commission now?
I am rejoining the commission. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next up is continued stormwater management permit, 75 School Street, map 75, lot 11. It's a new dwelling. In accordance with the provisions of the Southfield Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southfield Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Southfield Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Accessible Housing for Children, Elders, and Disabled LLC for the approval of a stormwater management permit for the construction of a new dwelling at 75 School Street, map 75, lot 11.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm James Tatro from Azimuth Land Design. I'm here with Jim Benincasa, who's of Accessible Housing for Children, Elders, and Disabled LLC. And we're here before you for asking for a stormwater permit. And the reason is this is a 20,000 and change square foot lot on the east side of School Street, again at number 75. And we would be proposing to alter well more than half of it, which triggers the need for a stormwater permit filing. The lot is in Residence B zoning district. It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot, but the proposed house will meet all of the required setbacks. As you see before you, it's a proposed house setback with a septic system in front. And in order to satisfy the stormwater regulations, you got an infiltration structure behind the house to the east of the house, which will include 18 shade precast concrete 4x4 by 3 feet deep galleys in stone. And on both the north and south sides of the proposed entrance driveway, you have 52-foot long, 4-foot wide, and let me get it right, 6-foot deep stone trenches to pick up the runoff from there. So we are proposing to infiltrate all but a tiny fraction of the driveway runoff that we can't collect, as it would get into School Street. But we're proposing to infiltrate all the runoff from the proposed house and the proposed driveway. What you see at the edge of the work, you see the sort of striped little rectangle symbol. That's an erosion control barrier to be in place before work starts, and that will consist of silt fence backed by staked straw wattles. We noted in the application that we will be bringing material to the site that's unavoidable with the grades. And I would just remark parenthetically that looking at the town's GIS, it looks like the nearest wetland is shown on the GIS is actually on the other side of the railroad, which is about 400 feet behind this property. There may be some at a sort of a pocket point right against the railroad, but that's probably still some 300, 350 feet from this property. There are no wetland resource areas in question at this site. And again, those infiltration areas that I cited for you, we submitted a drainage report showing the 210, 25, and 100-year storm flows to those structures and with no outflow from any of them. So I would just, it's really kind of that simple. I'll try and answer any questions that you may have. But I think the bottom line I would say is, we're here before you because we're altering more than half the lot, actually about 18,400 square feet of the 20,100 and change square foot lot. Only the very east end of it is being going to be undisturbed. And this is going to be, the reason we have this driveway and parking spaces, this is going to be a house, we use the term ADA house. I wonder if Mr. Benincasa wants to explain just about this.
Yes, how you doing? James Benacasa. So this home is for people with traumatic brain injury. So that's why it's on a slab. There's no basement. It has a turnaround. So that's why there's a larger driveway. The complaints that we get in our homes typically are the backup alarms of the vans. So what we try and do is do a form of horseshoe so that people can drive in and drive out. Yeah, without having to back up. And then we have 6 parking spaces. That's really what we need for shift change. Yeah, that's about it.
Yep, I just wanted to point that out because obviously the typical house in a circumstance like this, when we're bringing in a lot of fill, well, gee, why are you not creating a basement for yourselves? And why are you giving such a driveway as this? Those would be natural questions to ask, and those are the reasons why, because this is a house that is going to be used for the rehabilitation of folks who've had traumatic brain injuries. I'll leave it at that. I'll just try and answer any questions that you may have. And I just want to, just one more quick thing. I want to apologize that the reason this was continued to this meeting and not heard previously is that I messed up and did not send out the butter notices on time previously. That was entirely my fault. And I apologize to the commission members for cluttering up your previous agenda and not having dealt with it correctly.
All right, thank you. Now, typically, I'm looking around here, you'll have a generator and an underground fuel system for that. Oh, I see it.
Yep, south of the house.
Yeah. There's one of these homes in my neighborhood, so I'm very familiar with this. Okay, any questions or comments from the commission members? Wow, quiet board.
It's not really a question or a concern, but I just want to acknowledge that it isn't documented in the drainage report that I can see, but our stormwater management bylaw requires meeting the stormwater standards of the DEP, and this does appear to meet every one of them, from infiltration, peak flow mitigation, all across the board.
I think the commissioner, Mr. Smith, is correct. We as part of this filing, we did submit a stormwater report checklist, and obviously a lot of them are not actually so applicable to such a small scope project as this. But yeah, we are, and obviously with the soils we had here, which I forget whether off the top of my head whether there was sand and loamy sand. We actually obviously have no trouble at all meeting the 72-hour drawdown of those infiltration areas.
Any other comments? No? Okay. Pretty straightforward, I believe. Is there any comments from public?
Yes, anyone who would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. We do have one. E. Bertinazzi, please make sure you state your name and address, please. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes, Eric Bertinazzi. I live at 65B School Street. And as you can see, my name on the surrounding area on the plan here. I own the surrounding property, the cul-de-sac, and then 3 properties to the east as well. And we're concerned and have concerns. There's been a great deal of fill brought in, and the topology of the property has changed greatly. And it's now as a giant sort of ski ramp down towards my lots in the back there, which would be saved for my children to live there someday. And it's quite concerning. We don't understand what's happening, and we don't know the effects of this and what's already been done and what's going to be done. So I wanted to make that clear and let you folks know about that, and let it be known that we have these concerns, and we do not know how these things would be mitigated or not, and regardless of what's been planned, what would be the effect whether onto our surrounding properties. I don't know if anyone on the commission has walked the site and seen the steepness. There's a great deal of material brought in, and you can already notice that the change in what's happening there. We've lived here for generations, and you can already see that. So I don't know if any of you have walked the property or looked at it, but it would be nice if that occurred. Thank you.
So the good news is the town of Southfield's got a stormwater bylaw that is intended to protect your property from, projects, potentially such as this that would not be mitigating the stormwater runoff. They would build all this impervious area and not be containing the water on the site. So the water that runs off of this site today cannot be increased when it's completed, right? So you will not get any more water than you currently get today once the project has been completed.
That is correct, and I would just note in addition to that in our drainage report, we studied the flow to all of the abutting properties, to the 40-foot wide way to the south, to the Bertnazzi property to the east, to Rick's Rod's property to the north, and to School Street. And we specifically looked at, and again, in the 210, 25, and 100-year storms, the flow to each of them. And the reason that we have so much infiltration, the 18 chambers behind the house and the two 52-foot long, 4-foot wide, 6-foot deep trenches beside the driveway, is to ensure that none of those properties get more water.
That's the full intention of the bylaw, to protect the surrounding abutters and to recharge the water that was previously going into the ground before development, that it continues to go in the ground at the site post development.
Well, it may capture the water that comes off the roof and what lands up top, but there was a great deal of material brought in already, creating a sort of a large, almost like a ski ramp in the back. So what happens to that water?
Are you saying during development?
Previous to this plan, and previous perhaps to the sale of the land, I don't know if it was before or after the sale of the land. There was this large amount of material brought in. So you can capture all the water off the roof, but the topology of the land has been changed drastically prior to this construction.
Well, I can't speak to that. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if the applicant can or not.
We haven't done anything over there yet. We've purchased the property about a month ago, and we haven't touched it or done anything yet.
We just did the soil tests for the septic system and the extra deep hole for the infiltration area in the back. If there is material brought by a previous owner, the applicant has nothing to do with that.
And I think it might clarify some more, is that this proposal was based off the conditions that the site exists in today. So with the fill that has been brought in historically, because I think the fill you're referencing hasn't been necessarily in the last year, except for maybe some logs. But I think the actual fill is still pretty, it's scrubby out there. So the topography that they have in the back is what it looks like now. So they are taking that into account.
Well, the fill was brought in the last year.
So that was by the previous owner?
I don't know exactly when the land was transferred, but it was done in recent months. I don't know who did it.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, all we can say is that we have done no earthwork on site. I don't know when anything else happened before the applicant having an interest in this property.
Maybe one question that will clarify something is the steep slope that you clearly see in the map there on the backside. What is the plan to stabilize that slope? What are you going to plant there or put there to,
It's
prevent a
actually
bunch of
vegetated
mud
right
from running down
now. It's vegetated right now. It's basically brush cover. It's not.
No, it's not. I live here. It's not. It's a giant gravel mountain. There's
Let me,
nothing
I have a
growing there.
recent photo from today I can bring up. Just give me 1 second. You guys.
Yeah, and let's address all comments to the chair, please.
So this is what the back slope looks like today.
Well, it's definitely not bare.
No. That's,
So that's the site looking from the very back slope, looking to the street at School Street.
Do you have a picture showing the steepness of the slope?
You can it was difficult to capture. So that's what I was trying to
that picture
see.
right there. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get. It was difficult, just perspective on the camera to get it.
And that's the east side?
Yes. Yeah, so that would be, I'd be standing right about here.
Okay. And to the applicant, are you going to be bringing that up higher than what's there now?
I think right where that picture is taken is not going to change. I think that the area, maybe from Melissa's shadow in the picture to the left, as you look at that photo, will be where the fill is placed. Is the fill that's on the east side of the infiltration structure.
All right, so I guess back to Mr. Pete's question, how do you plan on stabilizing that?
That is a 2-to-1 slope, and we've got on the on sheet 2 of 2 as a detail. We call for North American Green SC 150 BN erosion control mat, which is rated for use on up to a 1-to-1 slope, to be on that proposed 2-to-1 slope.
All right, so you're going to use mats, then seed over that.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Smith.
so, you mentioned, I think I see where it happened. You did a deep hole test over by the proposed infiltration.
Yep.
What were you said the soils are predominantly sandy loam, if I recall correctly. What were your, excuse me, Mike?
Actually better than that. From the sheet 1 of 2 of the grading plan, which was a modified version of the septic system plan,
Yep.
Hole 1 was a sand, hole 2 was texture was a sand in the sea horizon, hole 3 was a sand, the unofficial was a loamy sand. So we actually had
Okay.
Sandy loam. We actually had better than that.
Okay, and the your observations of the soil, I'm looking at the unofficial test pit back towards the detention area. Your observations of the soil there, was it obvious fill, or I mean, this is something you can typically see when you're down in the pit? Okay.
It was not at that point. I can't speak to Mr. Bergnazzi's contention that further to the east it is. I don't know.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
not,
I see where.
It was not at that point.
We're quite a bit further back then. Okay. And then one last, this is Melissa, this may be because it was a digital submission or something, but do you have a copy of the stamped plan? Okay,
Yes.
I just didn't see one on this. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, anyone else from the Commission of the Public?
I'm not seeing any other raised hands from the public.
And I'm going to ask a question that the erosion control barriers that are shown on here that were described as silt fence and stake straw wattles. They will be installed prior to any work and inspected by the commission, and then maintained to the utmost capability standards known to mankind until it's all stabilized.
We understand that is what is required.
And I would encourage you to have spare materials on site that you can grab in the event of a breach. That, having a breach and say, oh, geez, I'll get it Monday or Tuesday, they're out of stock, that doesn't fly. You can't have that. We've had that in the past. So having something that you can, put your hand right on and get installed is important, especially where steep slopes like this are involved.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, Mr. Carl.
Just one question, just to reassure that they will be trenched, right?
Correct. We've got a detail on sheet 2 of 2, and it shows that the silt fence has to have the low end trenched in. And again, I know you see these in different ways. A lot of times I sort of prefer the wattle backing up the silt fence. I think you have sort of more structural ability to hold back more material that way. But we are proposing that the call for the silt fence to be keyed in front of the staked straw wattles.
Okay. Okay, any other? Okay, seeing none, I think we can close the hearing. Do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
Moved.
Your second.
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes. Wittes.
Yes.
We were trying so hard. Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, we will come back to this for the decision language at the end.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, and again, I apologize for having stretched this out an extra meeting by mistake.
Thank you, board.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up, continued notice of intent, continued stormwater management permit, 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Foods, map 26, lot 2 and 6. This is construction of a 62,500 square foot warehouse addition. A request for certificate of compliance for DEP number 290-1000, 290-1012, and 290-964, and a stormwater management permit. In accordance with the provisions of the South Road Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, South Road Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the South Road Wetlands Bylaw, the South Road Conservation Commission will hold 2 continued public hearings on Thursday, January 6, 2022, at 7:45 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Ken's Foods, Inc. for approval of a stormwater management permit and notice of intent for the construction of a 62,500 square foot addition to the existing warehouse at 325 Turnpike Road, map 26, lot 2 and 6. These hearings will be held or are being held concurrently. Good evening.
There we go. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Doty from John Crow Associates. Thank you. Bill, I see Bill Pizzoni's here also, and Jim Bourne is here also from Ken's Foods. I guess I'll give us an update would be good on where we are and what we've received, or how would you like to proceed, Mr. Chairman? Like Melissa to give a basic first, or?
Yeah, sure. Melissa, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So since the last meeting, we've received Crow's official responses to Lucas Environmental, and also the follow-up reviews from Fuss and O'Neill and Lucas Environmental as well, responding to some of those initial comments and follow up on the infiltration units out front. And I think there's been some discussion about the flood study again and kind of what that entails, and the causality of that, and also about potential mitigation areas and makeup. So I think that's kind of what we have. It's been pretty basic in between, just trying to get the back legwork done.
Yeah, thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll just sort of also make a few other points, and I think perhaps Mr. Pizzoni might also wish to speak a little bit. So we did receive Fuss and O'Neill's comments yesterday, and are going through them. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me just interrupt you. I think that maybe for some organizational, there's so much going on here.
Yes.
With respect to the open, open filings and new filing. It might be helpful to just give an update as to where we are with closing out the existing certs, right? One by one, like go through that first, and then we can get into anything that has to do with the new edition.
Sure. Okay, let's do that first, right?
That might be helpful to everybody to be organized around this.
Sure. Thank you. I understand. Yes. So we've made 3 requests for certificate of compliance. One related to the major project from a few years back, with some suggested conditions related to planting, work that needs to be done. Also, filing associated with the septic system, notice of intent in that order. Also, again, suggestion for a continuing condition related to the better reconstruction of the replication area associated with that. They're also the oldest certificate of compliance we have requested has to do with the sound wall that was built for the original plan to maintain the loading docks on the north side of the building. And we have successfully been able to have Beals and Thomas provide their engineering certification on that, and we'll be submitting that with our cover tomorrow, if not on Monday. So we believe we have submitted with this Beals and Thomas letter certification by Matt Cody, who was the design engineer for the original project, the sound wall that is. We believe we've got the submittal materials that should be able to provide the commission with the assurances that they need that when an order is issued for the current project, concurrent with that or shortly at the same meeting, perhaps after it, the certificate of compliances could be issued, because the continuing conditions would have been, as Vice Chair, as Ben Smith had suggested at one hearing in the past, that we get those conditions into the order prior to closure on the certificates on the 3 outstanding. So if there are any, maybe I should stop for any questions on related to those 3 certificates.
So we now understand what's clearly open or remains for each of those outstanding OOCs, the 291,000, 291,012, and 299,64.
64, right? That's the sound wall.
Yeah, and you'll be including those opens in your new application. Correct.
Yeah, with those requests, Mr. Chairman, we put suggested conditions in with those applications that would be incorporated into the new order.
Okay.
On the sound wall, the engineer at Beals and Thomas had pointed out a few things that I think also should be addressed there's a few trees, a tree that had died and one that's missing. And I think there'd be another short sentence order that would come from that also, that will be submitting in short order to Melissa for the board to for the commission to consider.
Okay.
So I think that and those conditions that we had in those applications, we could also roll into a summary of our understanding of conditions and waivers that are still current or alive for consideration for the commission's final decision. I think that's going to be a helpful instrument also for you in the closeout of everything, is to put it all together in one summary.
Yeah, that'd be yes, please.
Yeah. That was something I was going to get to on my list tonight.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So moving on to the current proposal, also going sort of in logical or chronological order, as you might suggest, Mr. Chairman, is the remedial work or the repair work associated with the outlet control, drainage outlet control structures that that need to be fixed. And as I was pointing out, we received Fuss and O'Neill's comments on our proposal for that repair yesterday, and have had an opportunity to go through it, and think we can respond with a good solid response within the week, and therefore don't want to presume, but presuming that Fuss and O'Neill has the opportunity to review that before the next hearing date, we believe we could have that those related issues addressed also to satisfaction. I think we're going to we'll end up probably having at least a workshop call with Fuss and O'Neill because of the inherent complication of going from one control structure to two control structures. I think that might be one item in which they didn't quite, the reviewer didn't quite understand, but seems to be kind of apparent from their review comments. And we'd be addressing those comments in conjunction with the same comments essentially that have been provided or we've received related to planning board submittals for the LID development special permit and the site plan. We basically have the same set of comments. So that's in our court right now. As I mentioned, that I think we would be wanting to provide a full set of waivers and exceptions and conditions for as we're sort of focusing in on ending these processes. And those I plan to pull together, and I think it's just from the various documents we have. We've sort of been asked to analyze it, pull it apart, so everybody can see each segment of this or each piece of this separately. But now, as we come towards the end, we need to bring it back together so that all the elements are addressed adequately in the final order. The two issues out there is one of the major findings, of course, we're asking the commission to make, or an exception is for the commission to find that we are mitigating volume to the maximum extent that we can on site with the infiltration we have, and also have proposed a enhanced buffer zone plantings in the close proximity to the wetlands along the east and the southeast edge of the property. If I may bring up a plan, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see here. I gotta get.
Listen, can he do it or do you need to do it?
No, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got it. I just have to remember which buttons to. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's the wrong plan. That's the overall plan, or the plan of the, but the this is the, of course, the plan of the southeast corner of the site. The warehouse is in this area here, Route 9, along the running east and west along the south of the property. This light green area, of course, is the now perhaps is the wildflower area that we need to continue and maintain under other permitting authority. But what we're proposing as helping consider for the commission to consider is mitigation is enhancing with woody plants and woody shrubs and trees along the closest edge to outside of the wildflowers, but closest to the wetland edge on the south and the east and the southeast. An enhanced buffer zone of plantings of woody and small trees and shrubs. A lot of that in the 20-foot no disturb zone. So inherent in that is, of course, our request for a waiver to do work in that area. And that work would entails the removal of the existing sods of maintained lawn and the plantings and addition to existing grades of planting material and soil material without filling in this area, of course. And then also down in this area here, the southeast corner of what we might call the south lawn, another 12,500 square foot of riverfront restoration, woody shrubs and large tree species in that area. And we've engaged Goddard Consulting to design these plantings for these areas here. That we're talking about. Is there any questions on that?
So this is being proposed as mitigation for the volume runoff.
Yes, I think perhaps in a meeting that you were not there, Mr. Chairman, we had some extended discussions about the need to add some additional mitigation.
Yeah, no, I'm up to speed on that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know the location that you're proposing is here on the east and southeast. You know, closer to the stream line, if you will, and it's the stream actually is in sort of a wooded area.
Yes, and that planting goes up to where the existing natural, what we call natural shrub edges are. In some places, it's separated quite a bit from the resources. In some places, it comes right up to it.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is that this would enhance the opportunities for stormwater to infiltrate as it might normally do in natural vegetated areas, because this area would become quite much more naturally vegetated than being sort of the manicured lawn that it is now. But it also gives them additional opportunities for wildlife and other natural functions and systems to, in a more natural setting, vegetative and ecological systems to occur without the manicured lawn. So,
yeah, Ben.
Yeah, so I think I, as much as anybody, had been pushing for some sort of mitigation like this, and I think this combined, at least from my perspective, with some of the other things, the little list I have is, first, these plantings are a buffer zone enhancement and a habitat enhancement, immediately adjacent to the wetland. But that combined with the proposed flood study, which will, pay dividends far beyond this project in our attempts to keep a handle on the flooding problems in the area. Combined also with the removal of flow obstructions from the channel that drains the area. I think if in your waiver request you listed these items as mitigation, I think I would certainly be satisfied. I was pushing for perhaps in a different area, but I had suggested an area roughly, the same square footage as the proposed addition, and by my math here, you're at about 54,000 square feet of habitat enhancement in what's probably an even better area. So just one commissioner, but I feel like this is, it mitigates the inability to completely recharge.
Thank you. I think that in response to that also, one of the things I think is important to point out is that I think that that this is a perhaps could be considered an adequate response, considering I think that the volume increase is kind of small actually when you in the big large scope of things, but I think this is an equalizer from that perspective. Thank you. I also
Anybody
want
else
to
have any comments on this?
I'm sorry. I also wanted to thank Joe and Lucas for his quick response to our compilation of responses to their earlier comments that we sent not a short while ago, and he responded quite rapidly and clarified some of the issues related to misunderstandings that we had in the field apparently in early November about what flags were to be skipped and removed. I want to thank Joe for doing that so quickly. Thank you, Joe. Related to the 100-year flood study, and I'm going to stop sharing this, but I can come back and get another screen with an overall site if anybody has any questions. We did do some research on that and discovered because we're not specialists in large scale flood studies ourselves, but we did call in the expertise of another firm, and we discovered that these processes can take a year and they're quite expensive. And so we sort of stepped back a little bit. We thought it was something that could be done in a matter of a few months and we could organize all the parties to be, but I have a feeling that we might be together, Ken's Foods and the town and whomever other stakeholders in the area, whether it be Mr. Bartolini with his properties that are in the same watershed or other individuals, even downstream, the Deerfoot, that we could be to make these improvements that Mr. Smith just indicated in this area to make sure we get a good handle on it and can take care of some of the obstructions. It could take a year to 2 years, this process, and could be quite expensive. So, Ken's Foods is taking the approach to be a major participant in this process, but doesn't believe it necessarily can be the complete driver of it. And so, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Bill.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We actually had Woodward and Curran, who most of you are aware of who they are, take a look at this and give us an idea. And the timeline is, Scott just stated, is probably appropriate. From a cost perspective, depending on the intricacy of the site, which this one covers a pretty wide area, could run anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000. And that's kind of a big number to ask for Ken to do a mitigation for. I believe you'd probably be filling a foundation for a 4,000 square foot house with water, the bottom, foot or two the bottom of it, is what our impact is. Also, when you then go to FEMA and you want the plan updated, they charge you to update the plan, never mind assess the cost, to put it on the federal record. And that's another anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, depending on the area that's impacted. And again, this is a large area. So this could cost close to $60,000 at the end of the day and take 1.5 to 2 years. I mean, Ken's is willing to work and participate with it. When we discussed this in the beginning, I think we all felt, you know, it's like a $20,000 fix or something like that. And it's obviously 2 to 3 times that. If you want, I will reach out to Jack to see if his companies that about all of this are willing to contribute anything. But I don't think it's something that Ken should be saddled with 100% to do. And, you know, we're looking for ideas from you as to who else could participate. I know, Mr. Chairman, I spoke with you about conservation, if they had any funds available. And I understand that you're having to do another study and some remediation in town. It's going to probably be relatively costly for you in the next year or so. So I guess that we'll look into the commission if they could give us some ideas at this point of who else could participate, or do we start a fund and create a fund specific for this? And as applicants come in, you have them contribute to it. The only thing that pushes it out another year or 2 years even. So we're looking for thoughts from the commission.
And perhaps while you're thinking about it, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, that one of the things I could say is that we also could summarize what we think the goals are for this from our perspective, and perhaps the other commercial owners' perspectives. Summarize that would probably be, put that in a nutshell for all of you, would be probably another item that would be helpful.
Okay. Any thoughts from commission members?
Hey, Mark, can I ask a question? You can.
I asked for thoughts. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is a complex scenario, right? One that I'm not used to dealing with. And maybe if we could just review what's driving it, and what's driving this request might be helpful, because it is complex, and what actually has to be done. So this is, stormwater is not something not stormwater I'm familiar with. Floods, I'm not that familiar with on the details of we don't deal with that often. So if somebody could do that, that would be great. Maybe some of the other commissioners might benefit from that too. Maybe not.
Scott, I believe the genesis of this was a comment made by Lucas that although we're using old data, or data that we feel is it's showing a greater area of what's floodplain as opposed to what in reality is out there. Lucas, I think, felt that it might be a nice idea to have this study done.
I think
but I don't think it impacts anything else that we're doing on the site. I'll let you.
Yeah, sure. That's kind. You're kind of there, Bill. Really, one of the Lucas's comment was really related to a concern about making sure that we were protecting the bordering land subject to flooding. That would be associated with the stream running through the site. But really the genesis really was partly from some of the success that we already had out there in the last few years, 2 or 3 years ago, but still some work remained to return flow elevations out there to historic levels, as opposed to those of which have been maintained by blockages and such over the last several decades. And so some of the genesis is from that question by Lucas, which was a reasonable question, but also has to do with our desire to hopefully have these elevations of the water that surround the site and run through the site lowered. And we found why they were raised, and we took care of some of that a few years ago. But it would seem that to take any further steps, though, you really would need to have a hydrology analysis done to see what would happen to it. Bill, as you correctly point out, it's not necessary for this project. It's not something that's preventing this project from working correctly, or as correctly as it could. As you all know, we are a bit handicapped here with the high groundwater, but it's something that would improve all of the aspects of mitigation having to do with stormwater, flood prevention, and property use in the area. And as a major interest of course, that of protection that the commission has in their charge is, of course, interests of flooding and flood prevention, and not just from an environmental perspective, I would think, but also from a land management standpoint. So that's really the genesis of it. Carl, I don't know if that answers your question. Enough.
Can I just ask another question? Now, this is I know in the documents that talk about the beavers, right, and the impact they've had. Was that what defined the old floodplain, or is that I'm trying to put all the pieces together here?
Yeah. I'll share my screen, because I do have I can show where that's happening, and it will help illustrate things a bit, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Am
I boring everybody else today?
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my plan again?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. This is the northeast corner of the site. This is Deerfoot Road here, running along the east. We have residential abutters, of course, here, north edge end of the site where the septic system is. The stream runs again through this property. I hope you can see the colors here, everyone. The blue line, that's the brook running through the site across the property line here. And right here, where you can see sort of an hourglass constriction of the red lines. Oh gosh, these windows are coming up blocking. But if you right in that area where the cursor is, you can see where the red lines constrict to the blue. And that's the location of where there was an old farm cow path crossing. As you may all know, that there used to be a dairy farm in this area here along Deerfoot. And they used to have the cows, I believe, would go over here and graze up on the hill here in the north hill here. Well, there was the farmer put in a culvert there, and the beavers blocked it, and so that raised water 18 inches, and then the road was another 18 inches above that, or the path was another 18 inches above that, or so. And so there's a 3-foot buildup that happened there. I can only surmise the farmer put the culvert where the natural stream was, let's say 80 years ago, or who knows how many years ago. And we've gotten it halfway there. And that's made a big difference, as people have pointed out, in the area. So this is the major constriction, but as you can see, it's on land that we don't control. Our neighbors control. The prior owner was interested in allowed us to do the work that we did a few years ago. So of course, this current owner would have to be brought into the fold and allow the work also.
Yeah, and Carl, excuse me if I could, Scott, as you may remember, when we did do this work with the beavers and getting rid of their little hutches and everything, we also, with the DEP and conservation, worked with cleaning up the whole road, river.
Yes.
Going out to Route 9. There was
Yes, we
debris
did.
in the middle, there were logs, there were all sorts of blockages. There were blockages at the emergency access road in the back where it goes under the road there as well. So
Yes.
that's all been cleared and cleaned up pretty well. So it's flowing pretty well from the Ken's property down to Route 9.
Yes.
And you know, that will be maintained. I think that was.
Yeah, we had Central Mass Mosquito Control help us with that.
Yeah. And the abutter wanted us to do that initial work out there because of the pooling of the water and mosquitoes that were bothering them. So we could probably, you know, reach out to them to do some further work there and maybe finish that job. And that may be more effective than spending money on a study that's, you know, it's kind of a lot of money to spend. And I'm not sure it's beneficial to too many people at this point.
It's probably that it's a smaller nut to crack, but it probably is a very effective one, perhaps, where the flood study is more broad reaching. I agree with that, Bill. I think in general, just so the commission understands, the brook that runs, of course, behind these homes in Deerfield and eventually down between the schools and gets to makes its way to the reservoir flood area associated with the Sudbury Reservoir. This flood, the brook is a floodway, a studied profiled floodway all the way up till about these properties here on Deerfoot. So I think that's important to know.
Thank you.
Ben.
Yeah, so first, yeah, I think the part of the original genesis of the idea was because it would, the performance of the flood study would potentially reduce the area of BLSF on the project. I had thought from the start that it was a remarkably generous offer. I know these things aren't cheap. I was looking forward to getting it because, as I say, it would pay dividends to us in trying to control the flood problems in the greater area there. I know these things are pretty expensive to do. Woodard & Kern is a fantastic firm. You know, it probably could do a little bit of price shopping, but I don't think you'd see a huge reduction. I think my original point does stand, though, that the increase in plantings combined with the current work that has been done to remove flow obstructions from the channel, it sounds like we might have a proposal to attempt to work with the abutters to further improve that channel. Sounds to me, you know, as one commissioner, as mitigative for the you know, for the infiltration.
Yeah, I think I saw Jim Bourne shaking his head yes.
It's putting it's the creative part of it all is going to be crafting a condition that's related to that, I think, really. And when we don't quite really know what the end result's going to be, so we're going to have to ask for some understanding in that regards. I mean, we don't.
Well, I think we can make best efforts to reach out to the abutter and other agencies that we would have to in order to get in there, because you're going to have to pull out not only the rest of the pipe that's there, but the piece of the farmer's road that he built going across.
We're going to need some kind of action, right, from the commission to do that work, and we don't have a design of it now. And it would be it's really something that you just do. But I think we had to get the environmental protections need to be in place. We were able to get to it with a small Bobcat machine, and to help pull the beaver deceiver out and such. But without causing any sedimentation or erosion. But I think the next step is going to be there. So the condition along these lines would have to be associated with expecting that there'd be some kind of operation, some kind of plan put together that gets reviewed before the work is done. But not have that plan completed right now.
I think we could condition that with some a general idea of what the activities would be, and that there be a pre-construction meeting with Melissa prior to undertaking the activities. After you've, hopefully you'd be able to in the short term reach out to the property owners and see if it's even something that's on the table. And if it is, if they would allow you to walk through their backyard and take a quick look, get an idea of what's necessary, and then we could craft a condition that it be done during a period of low flow with siltation, semi-permeable siltation barrier across the stream, or whatever you feel is necessary.
Right. Yeah.
I think we could
agree.
condition that pretty easily if the property owners are willing to work with you, which hopefully they would be, because it certainly would benefit them as well.
Well, and I think it was somewhat successful the last time around for them. And it really, we laid, sheets of plywood to get the machine through their backyard.
That's right. That's what we did.
There was really no impact to their yard proper.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem. I'll try to reach out to them.
Yeah, but it's not going to be done under an emergency order like it was last time. This is the difference. So.
Okay. Let's see. So you're going to be working with Lucas Environmental and Fussell and Hill to clean up the peer review comments?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of need to move this along. We still have a full agenda ahead of us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
A lot of things on it. So,
this is going to be continued as we know. I want to see if we have any comments from the public with respect to this application. Just please raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
Yes, I have Jack Barlini. Jack, please say your name and address for the record. Should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. I was quietly listening and then I heard my name. So I felt that maybe I should, I agree 100% that a action is worth more than a study. And I believe that our stormwater bylaw is a zoning bylaw, and that you could use that probably to get under the abutters property. That being said, if you wanted to do the study, wouldn't that fall under the CPA funds? And that that could be applied in this case through the Conservation Preservation Act, where all of us taxpayers pay, I think it's 1% that the industrial people are paying on their tax bills. So I think that you could use some of those funds if you wanted to do the study. But I don't think that, I believe that action now benefits more than the study would ever benefit. So I just thought I'd throw that out.
Can I jump in just real quickly, Mark? I'm just I'm the commission's representative to the Community Preservation Committee. So, and that's the committee in charge of administering CPA funds. And the uses to which they can be put are very limited. It's housing, open space, historical preservation, and recreation. And those classifications are actually really tightly defined under the Community Preservation Act. And I can tell you with a high degree of certainty that this just unfortunately wouldn't qualify under CPA for funding. Yeah.
I guess unless you're going to build a park in their front yard.
Yeah, I can't think of a way you could tie it in being open space or recreation or, certainly not historical preservation or housing.
Bring back the soccer fields or something.
Yeah, so they used to play soccer out there.
Yep.
Yeah, my son played soccer there. Okay, anybody else have any comments? No, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and continue this. Do you think we'll be able to get all the back and forth between our consultants and your engineers wrapped up by the 27th? That'll certainly be the goal.
I think we can, based on what I've seen in the comments and what I know what we have to do. It's never easy, but I think we can.
Okay, and I think you've got a feedback from the Conservation Commission that the mitigation that you're proposing in that plan is more than reasonable. Better location, better for habitat, and so forth. And as Mr. Smith pointed out, I think we can condition something around the mitigating or improving flow, if you will.
Mark, not to drag this out anymore, but did you want anything from Joe to go over for their recent response at all?
I think, to be honest with you, I think his responses back to the applicant, they need to sort them out, and then I come back in. I mean, where we have so much more on the agenda, I don't really want to go through that line by line.
Okay.
Be here until tomorrow.
That's fine with us.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to continue to the next meeting, January 27th?
So move.
You got a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Osmano.
Yes.
All right, we are continued.
All right. Thank you. So that's the end of our public hearings for the night, but we still have a whole host of new and continued business. So first up is discussion with Trails Committee, proposed boardwalk and footbridge near Fayetteville Dam as part of the BLT.
Yep, give me 1 second and I will, I have Kat McKee, who's the chair of the Trails Committee, and Tom McCuller, Mark Cueller, I'm sorry, Tom, I can't do it right now, as also part of the Trails Committee.
All right, have them go ahead and start their presentation. I just need to drop off for about 3 minutes. I'll be right back.
All right, Kat, are you, there you are.
Okay, good evening. So should I just jump right in to share my screen, and I'm just going to share the materials that I provided today. So give me just a moment as I pull that up. Okay, so let me know when you see our letterhead.
You're all set.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I won't go into a lot of the background. We met with the Trails Committee, presented in front of the Conservation Commission a few months ago for a notice of intent for a related project to this trail. So we're essentially trying to open up a 1.8 section of trail near the Fayetteville Dam. And what we're here tonight to talk about is part of that plan, bridge, to provide an alternative route to connect the trail to Bay Circuit Trail, and the trail being Burroughs Loop and Aqueduct. And the reason we would do that is to avoid the Route 30 passage, because it's unsafe and there's no shoulder and there's no way to walk. So after years of discussion, and if you've looked at a little bit of the background information that I'd sent previously, we've worked with MWA, DCR, Southport DPW, Mass DOT, Framingham, Parks and Rec, Conservation Committee, lots of organizations have looked at this area and tried to come up with a solution. We have a verbal approval from MWA to move forward with a footbridge and a boardwalk as an alternative to Route 30. So as a result of that, we're here to talk to you, to provide the description of what we're looking to do, discuss what questions you might have, any issues we might have, and ideally what we would come out with. We're proposing to submit a Mass Trails grant in February 1st. So we would like to have a letter of support if the Conservation Commission agrees and supports the project. So that's the short story. And what I can do now is just kind of step us through the documentation that I sent earlier. And if you have questions, feel free to stop me, and we can go back and forth to these images as questions come up. But the location of the trail, we're shortcutting, calling it Peninsula Trail, is located near the Dam. And what you see in this first image is just kind of a snippet of what it looks like, and then the overview of the Southborough map, so you can kind of see that the placement of what we're looking to do. These next two figures are the zoomed in image. So essentially, I'll just start with this last one, this middle one. The boardwalk that we're proposing is located here with a couple of bog bridges, and then the footbridge would go across Stony Brook. And there is a bordering with Framingham, so we're involving Framingham Conservation Commission and Parks and Rec as well. And then this last piece is just an aerial view of the same location, so you can see it in a different perspective. We've talked about the background. So the next section talks about some of the specifics. There's going to be a dirt trail that's roughly, I think, 106 feet, and that abuts, then it starts to be the boardwalk. The boardwalk is in a wetland area, so that's why we're here. And we're proposing about 75 feet of boardwalk, 5 feet wide. And the materials that we're looking to use would be a fiberglass reinforced plastic, or a polymer, I believe it's also called. After the boardwalk, it would be a dirt path until you get, and I think that's roughly 170 feet. And then the footbridge across Stony Brook is a roughly 65 feet. And both the boardwalk and the footbridge will be ADA compliant because federal funds, if the grant is awarded, are involved. So that's a requirement. In the considerations, I just talk a little bit about why we've proposed the fiberglass reinforced polymer. It's essentially for durability. This stuff lasts a long time. And it's because we're a small committee, because we're a small town, because there's limited budget, a little bit of more upfront cost will be more cost effective over the course of a period of time. So, and they also make it with, it's a slip resistant surface. So that's oftentimes an issue with boardwalks that can happen. And there's no leaching of preservative chemicals, things like that. The way it's going to be constructed allows light to come through and allows water to go underneath. And to install the boardwalk, we're looking to use helical piers. They're also called piles or anchors, and or marine dock hardware called Tommy docks. And it's the least invasive way to install the structure that needs to go into the surface, the soil, or the land, the ground. Here's some images. So figure 3, the boardwalk example. This is an example of what Marlboro used and they installed. That's actually a picture of their boardwalk. This footbridge is just an example of what it would look like. A bog bridge. This bog bridge image is obviously a really long one. We're looking to do 1 or 2 8-foot segments. This next structure, a diamond pier, a DP 75 diamond pier, is
instead of using concrete footings at the bridge, this is another structure that's more environmentally friendly. This next image, these images are an example of what a helical pier looks like, and that's what a Tommy dock looks like. So they're kind of similar. The Tommy dock is more cost effective, so we're putting them both forward, but we've asked for an estimate for both of them. And we've also met with the Open Space Commission, I think I have a typo there, Freddie Gillespie, to talk about some mitigating measures that we could look at for the area, and anything, involving invasives that might be removed, native trees or shrubs or plants that could be put in place of the few that need to be removed, other native plantings that could be maybe included for the benefit of the environment or pollinators, that sort of thing. Then a few additional, these are pictures of the area. So what we have here is a small diameter. So I think I've estimated about 15 trees. They're small trees. I've used my finger for scale that would need to be removed. And this picture, the natural surface boardwalk, this is the trail to the boardwalk. This is the area where some of the trees would need to be removed. Here's an example of where the boardwalk would go. It's on the corner here of this wetland area. The wetland has delineation flags along this side, so you can tell what had been delineated before. And this last picture is a picture of Stony Brook, and the footbridge would go over that. So I will stop and let you ask questions.
Has anybody been out to look at these areas?
Yes, we did a site visit with Melissa.
And I've walked this area several times, so I'm familiar with it. It's just in terms of the overall context, it's a really key piece of the puzzle to link those three, or to complete the tracks for those three trails that Kat refers to in her documentation. And I know we often try and look at, it's an alternative to having to put something, even a boardwalk with this sort of environmentally friendly fixtures in place, but there is no, it's not that there's another side of the area that could be used. It's you basically walk on Route 30 and take your life in your hands when you do it, so it's very, very dangerous there.
So I was just wondering, in terms of alternatives, is there any other areas to link the trails other than what's being proposed in this document and presentation, or is that basically there are none?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, having gone out with Kat and kind of being part of the Burrows Loop Trail kind of discussions in the past. And they have done, a very extensive job in determining alternatives throughout the boroughs, just for the trail in general before this all started. And having visited it recently and looking, exactly where these boardwalk and bridges would be going, they really have chosen the path of least resistance in terms of minimizing tree removal. And the span that some of these boardwalks and bridges would be is truly at the smallest point possible. In the small wetland area that the boardwalk would be going through, I would say isn't quite the best health already. It does have a lot of Phragmites in there. So I think the offset of the opening of these trails, and if they do kind of combine it with some invasive removal and native planting species, is a lot, I guess, more than we would typically see even for a normal trails project. So, and talking with Priscilla in Marlborough, who they've done a lot of boardwalks, installed on the commission side using those helical spouls. And I think they mostly had Boy Scouts doing a lot of the work. So it's definitely doable in a least impactful way possible.
And just
Now,
to
you mentioned
comment-
getting a grant. Is a proposal here to, seek a grant and then use those monies to hire a contractor or buy the materials and use Boy Scout labor, or?
Yeah, thank you. And just to comment, I did, Priscilla Ryder is available for the commissioners. If you have specific questions, she has done extensive work, as Melissa mentioned, and is very open. I spoke with her a couple weeks ago. She's open to answering any questions you have, so feel free. I left her contact information in the documentation. So the plan is to use our CPA funding that we received through the town meeting earlier this year as matching funds for a recreation grant. So yes, and it's to pay for a contractor to do the work and to buy the materials. This is the type of job that we're happy to oversee in whatever way we can, but because we're going to be in a wetland area, we prefer to use a reputable contractor who will make good decisions and be able to do it the right way.
Okay, thank you.
And this would come before us with a full NOI in the future, just so everyone knows. This is just preliminary questions, comments, and for ultimately a support letter for their grant.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the alternatives, because, if this was a typical, project of a developer or something that are coming in, we would want to understand what the alternatives analysis was. We would ask them for that. So
I've got a quick question about the pier systems. Are any of them the helical piers? We've talked about in the past couple of meetings, strangely, but they require equipment to be installed, and I'm concerned some of the crossings, I don't know how you could get the equipment to the far side, or even some of the piers will be within water or whatever. Can any of them be hand installed? It looks like the Tommy piers perhaps can actually be hand installed, and those might be a preferable alternative.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with that specifically, but the topic came up with Priscilla about having to hand install a couple of them, and they had the building inspector, I think it was the building inspector, come out and do a look to make sure that it was the right torque, if that's the right, so I think there is definitely a way. I'm not gonna be able to speak much to it, but I can certainly get more information if that's a concern.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that would be information to include in a notice of intent filing, because obviously what we look at are the impacts, and that would really minimize the impacts.
It would minimize the impacts if you could do it by hand versus using the equipment.
Exactly. If you had to wheel in a piece of powered equipment through a wetland, that's a whole different conversation than some folks walking in, and hand installing these.
Yes, and I think just with a little bit of preliminary research, there's a thing called an anchor auger that looked handheld. So
Okay.
it was like something you would just hold and put in and just kind of twist. But I appreciate that, and I'll definitely make a note and make sure we have that outlined specifically.
And it's basically like a post driver with a crank.
Yep. Okay.
So it is, I think Priscilla did quite a few of those. I remember talking to her about, all the volunteers getting a chance to crank it in.
Okay. Oh, great. No, I'm glad we have somebody nearby who has a lot of experience in this, who can help guide through the process. It's fantastic.
Okay, you were on mute if you're trying to speak.
Me?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody in the house.
Okay. I saw the lips going.
All right, so we'll have an NOI coming in at some point.
Yes.
Yes, if the grant's awarded, we'd need to go
Okay.
review again and get everything in order.
Hey, a quick question, Kat, did you say you were looking for some kind of indication of support or from us?
Yes, a letter of support that we would like to include in our application, that our Conservation Commission had reviewed at least the overview of the plan, and is favorable for the project.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, do you know how we do that?
No, we don't.
We don't do that, right?
Not really. We need a formal NOI for this, and I mean, I guess conceptually, it's possible. I guess that's how I describe it.
That's positive.
I mean,
Yeah, I think that's all they're looking for is the conceptual aspect that, not that we've permitted it, we're not, signing on to that. It's just that we would work with the Trails Committee to, find a mutually agreeable solution, and that the project does lead to the increased trail system and kind of our overarching plans for the Burroughs Loop Trail and just the open space and rec plan too.
yeah, I mean, like any other project, it would have to go through the permitting process, and and there could be appeals for that. I mean, there's, not that I think there would be, but it's always a potential. So, I mean, the commission, as far as as long as I've been on the board, has not written a supportive letter that kind of puts us in a precarious position.
I think just if this made the commission feel more comfortable, the letter could be written in the, depending on, and if then that type of thing. I don't know if that's something you could do, but I know DCR, for example, when we went before the town for the CPA application, they wrote a very vanilla letter that said, we support this, but it wasn't committing them. It was a very non-committal letter. So I think that's where I'm trying to get to with too many words, essentially, is like, you don't have to sign up for anything you don't agree with. It can state that we have to go through the entire process and permitting and do everything the right way. That kind of thing, if that's comfortable for the commission.
Yeah, and I would equate this to something like we do for the stewardship committee when they're applying to like their wildlife management grants, things that they do still need to come in front of us for permits, but haven't quite gotten the funds to make the plans yet. So I think if the commission is willing to write a support letter, it might be stating that we're supporting them gathering plans for further investigation to decrease wetland impacts, to open up trail systems, I think is a nice kind of way to allow us not to pigeonhole ourselves into saying we're approving it, but still looking forward to an application.
So that Mark doesn't have to play the ogre the whole time. Would it be possible that we could say we've just seen it?
I think
Without saying we support.
I guess what's the point of having them include a letter then, just to say we saw it?
Can it be more generic than even saying we've seen a plan? I mean, we can say we support the idea of linking these trails, and we'll work with them to come up with a way that, meets the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Bingo.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that, and end it by saying, and looking forward to the formal application for permitting.
Mark,
Cherry.
we've done this a couple times in I was looking for one. So I draft a memo from whatever, and then I just say at this hearing, the Conservation Commission voted in support of this project with a forthcoming permit be submitted at a future time, knowing that the permit could go either way. It could be whatever. It's just the permits coming to support the project.
Yeah, I mean, I support the concept of it, certainly. Me personally, as one member, the devil's in the details. So
I think something we'd also want to understand is if there's, aside from the notice of intent, if there's any requirements for things that we need to be paying for so that we can get that funded as well. That would be important to know coming out of this meeting so that we can include that type of information. So if there's something that you might need that we don't have, that's going to be required, like giving us a heads up so that we can include that in the estimate, or the grant proposal rather.
Yeah, me and Kat have gone through kind of the basics of what the application would require, but if there's anything that kind of jumps out at commissioners that you might want to have incorporated now, might be a good time to think about it.
Well, one thing that jumps out to me is the contractor is going to be, brought in to do the work. How are they going to get all the materials from their truck into where this stuff is going to be built and assembled? Will they be carrying it by foot? Will they be using some kind of machinery? There's those sort of details that are going to have to be fleshed out at some point.
Yes, and I think there's actually, so we'd have to work with MWA because it's on their property, and there's like a field next to this area, so, and it's adjacent to the road, so assuming that they would be able to use that area, obviously with permission, but that would probably work out well as a staging area for this type of stuff. And there's access to it from the Stony Brook Road that goes into the MWA facility.
One question, since you're building a bridge, right, there's always a safety aspect to this, a bridge over flowing water. It's not, it wouldn't be directly our concern, but.
The building inspector.
Yeah.
It has railings if that's what you're getting to. It's ADA compliant, so it will have railings.
And it would qualify as a structure. It would require a building permit and inspection by that building inspector.
And we need to take into consideration the flow of the height. So it fluctuates in height because it's a release from the dam. So
we don't want it to float away.
No.
So it feels to me like we could say something like, or vote something that the Southborough Conservation Commission supports the completion of the borough's loop trail in a manner that comports with the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act and Southborough Wetlands Bylaw. I think that would indicate, our conceptual support for the project and make clear that it has to abide by, the regs under our jurisdiction. Is that sort of what you guys have done, Sherry? Okay.
Yeah, I can't. I have one from a previous filing that would work perfect. If I can find it, I'll send it to Melissa. I can't find it right now. But basically, it implies we like the concept, but there needs to be a formal permit, and that needs to go through that process.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Is a vote required?
Yes, please.
All right, do I hear a motion to provide a letter with the verbiage that we've been discussing, basically, linking the trails. The commission is in support of the concept of that. However, permitting is required, and needs to meet the requirements of Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Southborough Wetlands Bylaw.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Watson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Heat?
Yes.
Dyer?
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Wittes?
Yes.
Masamoto?
Yes.
All right. Kat, I will work with you to get that over to you next week.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is public safety / golf course parking lot paving request.
Yeah, so I had uploaded to the Dropbox a document from Power Engineering talking about paving the parking lot at the golf course. So I think all of us can remember that this has kind of been going back and forth the last couple of years. So the last time the commission talked about it, it's outside of the CR, so we don't need to worry or go over that aspect of the requirement. But the commission asked for a formal, submission and certification that the system and the standards would still be met based on the difference of coverage of the parking lot. So they did run those calculations, and basically it's a change of a curb number, from gravel, which I think is the 96 to 98, which is the paved parking lot. And then the conclusion says the provided recharge volume and water quality volume within the constructed stormwater management system exceed the revised required volumes based on the increased impervious area. The peak rate discharging from the stormwater management system remains the same within the paved condition, requiring no additional mitigation. The stormwater management system remains in compliance with the stormwater and erosion control regulations. That's
so I wish I had all the time I spent talking about this gravel parking lot back from the day. So that seems like it's just lifetime minutes lost that I'll never get back. This was never going to be paved, never ever.
Nope,
Here we
there
are
ain't
talking
for
about
it.
it being paved again. What's that, Russ?
There was no need for it. Why are we gonna pave it, right?
Yep.
Well, here we are.
So what's the request here?
Basically just having, I think a formal vote would be nice to just say that you have looked at the submission and you are in agreement or favorable that the changes are still in compliance with the bylaw and therefore it can be paved.
Do we need some sort of amendment to something?
This could.
Just going to vote on a request that comes in out of nowhere?
Well, I think we could do.
This just seems odd to me.
It could be an administrative amendment. I think. I'm trying to. Well, it's not part of the public safety, so it's technically not under the stormwater permit, but the commission just.
It's more than 100 feet away from a wetland.
Yes, yeah. So it's not a wetlands issue. It's more just the stormwater aspect of it.
Hey, Melissa, is this somewhat tied into the conservation restriction?
No, so the parking lot of the golf course is not included in the conservation restriction.
So this is the golf course wanting to pave their gravel lot that is 100 feet away from the wetlands, and it does not trigger SMP?
Yes, I think previously when you guys have discussed, it was just, because of the, I think, past discussions you had during the public hearings, that the stormwater system was based off of a gravel parking lot. So you just wanted to ensure that if that became pavement, that the system could still handle that because it would ultimately drain to the new system. So that's why it's not necessarily tied into an existing permit. So it doesn't necessarily need an amendment, but it still kind of needed that check off from the commission as the final okay.
Melissa, the detention basin is in one of the envelopes on the CR. Is that correct? Not to confuse things, but for some reason I thought it was.
I'll double check that in a second. My initial thought is no, but let me check.
Oh, if it's not, then that would simplify things. For some reason, I thought that and the septic system were these carve out envelopes, but part of the CR.
No, I think there's only the septic system for the golf club within the CR. Let's find it. Plan. Restriction plan. It's taking so long to load. I'm so sorry. So no, it is outside. There's no detention basin in the CR.
Okay.
So the memo from Par and the calculations that they did, how do we memorialize that and make that part of, historical fact here?
Yeah, I mean, I can do what we would typically do for like an administrative amendment, which is essentially like a memo or letter, stating that the commission is now allowing for the additional pavement based on the report from PAR, dated whatever the date was, and that is to become part of the, a record during, management in the future.
Melissa, just a quick question. So this analysis included all the load on the stormwater with this into,
Yes.
so this is the new baseline.
Yes,
If anything else is going to be done in the future, this is the baseline.
correct.
Melissa, the plan just shows paved and gravel. Where are they pitching? I know it's going to get into the new system, but they designed out where pitching the water physically.
I can't.
Let me see.
I don't see that on the plans. If it just is going to run off with the police cruisers where they park, that's probably not going to work.
I don't remember. I think what they base their calculations off, so it would be the existing grade, so water would still be going to where it is. I believe is there a catch basin up there? And I think there's stone filter strips technically along the entranceway of the golf course. So there already was some features implemented for stormwater runoff. I think the thought was being that even though it was gravel, it was going to compact very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I see them coming in and grading that thing and crowning it, and the water's going to go in all different directions. I think we're playing with fire here, really, putting our names on this.
So do you just kind of want a better paving plan to ensure that elevations and drainage remains the same?
It's going to.
How do they come up with the calculations
on asphalt than it ever has on gravel?
So that they came up with the calculations by using so it would still be the existing elevation, but the curve numbers, so AKA the surface type of the material of the parking lot would be different. So they changed it from a gravel curve number to an asphalt.
But with no change on grading.
They could use the grading design, the original grading design for the gravel, but use those grades that do direct the stormwater, but pave it to those grades. If that makes sense. From the design plans for the public safety facility and golf course.
Right.
I guess that was the point I was trying to get, was that they might have icing or it might erode if it doesn't get into the physical system. They understand that it can hold this volume, it doesn't get there. But my husband was trying to say, as he sees it, that there's 20 to 30 feet of existing lawn between the parking lot and the station, and the water runoff would just get absorbed into the grass, and that there was about a 3-foot gravel barrier as well that the water has to go through before it gets to the lawn, physically on site.
Hey, Sherry, I don't know if anybody else. I know Ben's having a hard time.
Oh, can you not hear me?
We're having a hard time here. I'm having.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not very clear.
I'm sorry. It's probably because it's on a pillow. I'm sorry. Is that better to hear me?
Yeah, soft job, I think. Yeah.
It was on a pillow, so I guess my mic is on the bottom. I apologize. I was just trying to say, my husband had said that there at the station, there's 20 to 30 feet of existing lawn between the parking lot and the station, and the lot. Any water runoff would just get absorbed into that grass. And there's also about a 3-foot gravel barrier that the water would have to go through before it gets to the lawn. It is what he was noting. Oh, but you have the schematic one.
So yeah, this was the initial grading plan.
So there's an interceptor swale there that does go, there is a catch basin down in the corner. I didn't recall that.
I didn't either. Oh, interesting. Oh, so if they pitch it to that and
yeah.
And maybe even put like one of those Cape Cod berms on the backside so that it gets to it and stays there. But my fear was that it would hit that, jump that, and then cause a problem right where they park the trailers or the police, fire department parks in the winter. Melissa, my husband actually has his hand raised. I don't know. Talk.
Oh, it's because I'm sharing. Hold on, Heath, I'm coming. Okay, he should be able to unmute.
So
Okay, I don't even know if my mic works. Is that working?
So should the design be updated to, they probably don't want to do this, right? Design be updated to ensure, for is Russ's point, that we get the correct water flow?
Well, if they pave it to these grades, it'll work.
Right, so that's what their certification is that if they follow the initial design, but just have a different surface type, it will still be able to, the system will still be able to hold, and the volume and rates will not be increased. They will not change.
Yeah, these elevations will pitch it down to that catch basin number 1 and also the grass swale.
So they'll have to dig it out to pave it, I assume, right? To keep the same elevation, right?
Yeah, because they wouldn't just pave over the gravel, they'd still have to do an appropriate subbase, et cetera, so.
Okay.
And it'd effectively be a 3.5-inch cut to allow for the thickness of the mat.
So this is the plan that PAR used?
Yep, yeah, they double checked with the final plans, made sure that what I had was what they had and the stormwater report was the same.
Did they refer to the plans in their letter?
Yep, so they ran the revised calculations, so the new HydroCAD calcs are in that letter as well. So we essentially have parts of an updated stormwater report, so we can keep that as part of the record. I have that saved in the public safety notice of intent, just so we have that for the future.
Okay. All right, so I think we have a way to document, memorialize this, which was my point, so that 15 years from now, somebody wants to come in here and do something, it's we've got some record existing. Okay, do we need a vote on this?
I would recommend an official vote, yes. And I guess the vote would be issuing an approval, with the condition that the project and the pavement is built to the existing grading plan, just with the change of pavement from gravel.
But it is an amendment, right? It's an amendment.
It's not technically amendment.
This is outside the SMP.
Yeah.
They're just using the stormwater provisions that was built for the safety building for the parking lot, paved parking lot. And it's going into a detention basin that's outside of the CR. So do I hear a motion to move forward the acceptance letter that Melissa has described?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Watson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Guyer?
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Wittes?
Yes.
Passamano?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, next up, we have a request for 1-year extension, 7 Clemens Street, DEP 290-1038. So due to COVID and the pass sale falling through, they did not begin the construction when expected, and they're only asking for a 1-year extension. So it's pretty straightforward. Do I hear a motion to issue a 1-year extension?
So moved.
Here a second? Okay. All in favor?
Watson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Guyer?
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Wittes?
Yes.
Passamano?
Yes. Okay. Next up is request for administrative amendment, 10 Pearl Street, DEP 290-1078. Melissa, you've got the narrative in this.
Yeah, so
I have to step away. The dog needs to go out.
so since the
I'll be
last
back.
meeting, I met with the homeowner, and essentially the contractor that we talked to the last time is gone. They are no longer on the project. So I met with the homeowner this week to really go over what exactly she is hoping to do for the future. And I did take some pictures, and I think I put them up on the Dropbox to show what the site looks like today. So the contractor kind of connected the roof downspouts and extended them out through the slope that they had filled for the septic, and kind of put a pipe and a flared end and a lot of riprap. Which kind of was more than she was expecting. In reality, she just kind of wanted to make sure that the water wasn't digging and taking away her slope and making the rills that were happening, along with she wants to have the fence still, and just making sure that the water isn't pooling now in that lower area and basically creating a small depression. So I'm going to be working with her for the next couple of weeks and determining what exactly she wants to do. I think if you look at the photos, and if you want to go to the site too, just let me know and I'll take you out there. The fence, I know originally from the last meeting, and we even brought it up in the minutes, stated it should be at or outside of the 20-foot buffer zone. But at the site now, it's just not realistic for that to happen because it would be in the middle of a boulder slope essentially. So in reality, it might be more realistic for that fence line to be about 10 feet or 15 feet away from the wetland. There still will be that existing stone wall. It would be in front of some of the larger trees, and it would provide a little bit actually farther of a barrier, because right now technically they could use their lawn up until the stone wall. So it does give us a couple feet back. So I'm going to be working with her to create a more robust plan of what actually is going to be happening, and getting a new landscaping company to give her a couple ideas. So that's where we are for that, and we should have some more for the next meeting. And she's also amenable to planting as many native plants as possible. She was fine. I think it just got out of control with the contractor and the work that was happening. So that's where we are with Pearl Street. Joe, also, if you want to go, I think you can. I don't think there's any more wetland stuff on for tonight, so I think you're safe. I know we're riveting, but you're on mute if you're talking. I'm sorry. You're still on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I just saw you had me maybe commenting on Stonebrook Court. I don't know if you need anything on that. I talked to you about it today.
Yeah, if you want to do a quick update, I think that'd be fine.
I went to Stonebrook Court today at the request of the applicant to take a look at what they've been doing as far as invasives removal, and it's much improved. Vast majority of the invasives have been cut or removed, including in the detention basin. I just saw one clump of multiflora rose, which I think they're going back to get. And most of the silt fence that had been buried was also removed. There was still some remaining, but it's kind of frozen in the ground. I don't know that that's going to come out anytime soon. But I just wanted to give you an update of how that was progressing.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Carl? Carl, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Usually when you...
Did it look like I have a question or something?
When you put your finger up like that, that's usually when you have a question.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just,
Okay. And you're back. Mark, we did Stonebrook too.
Oh, you did?
Which is basically they're working on the invasives, but we don't need to vote on anything tonight.
Okay. So nothing new in 84 Main Street?
Nothing new. I talked with Peter again earlier this week and reminded him that he does need to get some amendment information in. So I made a very valid point that it should be in by the 27th so we can really discuss an amendment request.
Okay. Hey, number 7, Chestnut Hill Farm Management Plan.
So I sent out to all of you and uploaded to the Dropbox the draft copy of the new overall management plan for Chestnut Hill Farm. The trustees are not with us tonight. I think we just wanted to get some initial comments and first reactions before we had them in at the next meeting to kind of have a more robust back and forth discussion. The Open Space Preservation Commission hasn't made comments yet, but Freddie said that they should have them by the 27th as well. Recreation didn't provide any comments, which we weren't expecting them to because they're not really involved in this property. And then SVT also took a look and they had no concerns over the management plan. The only comment was just making sure it was clear that this was just for the CR that the town holds and not the other small parcels that SVT oversees. So, looking for some initial thoughts and comments that I could send off to the trustees. I tried to make sure at least the larger points that have come up in the past had been addressed in terms of trail closings and livestock and making sure that they had their table of square footage and an updated trails map, etc. I think the one thing that is really different from the last management plan is they did expand a lot more on their programming and public engagement. And this kind of stems a little bit more from the discussions that they've been having with the select board in terms of when they're going for their one-day liquor licenses. So they wanted to get, a better understanding of, or better representation of the programs that they do on the farm and what that would entail and how that relates back to the CR.
Can I ask a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
If it's supposed to be a lot about education and showing farming,
I can hardly hear you again, Sherry.
damn it, can I get closer to it? I guess if the intent of the CR and to do the programming is educational, what does liquor have to do with that? I kind of,
yeah, that's pretty much the fundamental question that the select board was having. So I think their explanation of that is that, if nothing else, it does entice people to come to their programming, and which does have more educational and information about the farm and where food comes from. So while the alcohol itself may not be directly related, it does get some better public visitation that helps with the outreach.
I guess with that, then I'd be more apt to say BYOB. If you need it, go ahead, bring it, versus having them sell it. Because I could just see in 15 years, like, hey, we built a brewery. Come on down,
Yeah, I know.
Really,
I think part of it is for
barley and hops that they made on site.
What would be bad about that?
I think part of it is for when they do like their farm dinner. So they have, when they do the alcohol that way, or they do the brew hikes, so they do the nighttime hikes, but they have beer available.
So I think I was pleasantly surprised with the farm management plan. I think they took some time going through it. I went through it pretty closely. I just came up with a couple of things. Some of them might be picayune, but I actually put together just some quick notes that I can email to you, Melissa, which might make it easier. I was going through super quickly. Just it's things that have come up in the past. They went through their livestock and grassland practices, which had a lot to do with fencing. In the CR, it talks about fencing, and it says that before placing fencing, prior notice must be given to the grantee. They talk about two different kinds of fencing. One is a permanent electric fence, and one is a portable electro netting, they call it. I was thinking perhaps before they move any of the permanent fencing, under, as the CR says, they should get in touch with us and let us know, but maybe this farm management plan could serve as notice for the portable stuff. They've given the strategy how they're going to move it, and maybe this could be the notice there. Just my thoughts on that. The trail closings paragraph, there's just a couple of,
Can I ask you
yeah.
a question? That portable fence, I know they move that around all the time, right?
They do,
Are you
yeah.
suggesting that they have to come to us to move it?
No, the portable stuff, what I'm saying is maybe this farm management plan itself could be for the next 5 years, this is the notice, because they say, here's our strategy for moving it around. So that's sort of the notice for it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That's what the intent of having that in there, because that was my same comment of technically you're supposed to be allowed, but the portable fencing doesn't make sense to tell us every time.
Exactly. But the permanent stuff, if they're going to be moving that, then we get into changing field boundaries and stuff, and we should be involved in that. And then the trail closings, again, it might be picayune, but it talks about, you have to have agreement between the parties. It says agreement between the trustees and the town. And just thinking back to that, when that all happened, there was some, for instance, the selectmen getting involved, and I felt like the commission was left out when the CR is under our care and control. I think in this section, as in other sections, they should be, they reference the Conservation Commission in other sections. I think in this section, they should say the, agreement between trustees and the commission. And also, there's a last sentence there on that trail closings paragraph that just caught me, I don't know, rubbed me a little the wrong way. Talking about that they'll comply with state regulations or whatever. I would just as soon see that sentence go away. I don't think it's necessary. Of course, everyone involved will comply with state regulations, but if they feel it necessary, I think it should just say the trustees and the Conservation Commission will comply with state regulations, mandates, et cetera. The prior farm management plan had a section entitled Trail Relocation. It seemed well written, and if that comes up over the next 5 years, I think that previous section should be just included in its entirety to cover the relocation of trails if it happens, unless they're not proposing to move any trails at all over the next 5 years. I still think it should be in though, because this time, it's been 7 years since the last update, and I think it ought to be there. The programming and public engagement was, I'm glad to see such a thoroughly described plan for their activities and so forth. To Sherry's point, I heard about the selectmen's criticisms about education. Is it educational or not? The wording in the CR, boy, it could really be a lot more straightforward. It's difficult to muddle through. The last time we had something like this was over, you'll remember all the brain damage we went through the parking area. The way we untangled that knot was we talked to SVT, their CR expert, whose first name was Dan, his last name escapes me. He guided us through it. He read through it. He used his CR expertise to guide us through the problem. And I struggle with myself with whether or not that's educational. And I think he could perhaps help us through that. And then I would also say that the programs that they offer are well loved within town. And if they are found not to really comport with the CR, I would encourage, as I have in the past, trustees should embark on the process to amend the CR. These are very popular programs in town. There's no denying it. And if the CR needs to be amended, let's start the process. Let's get it started. Let's see. Lastly, the 2015 farm management plan addressed something that actually came up. What happens if a new plan isn't adopted within 5 years? And that one had sort of a continuity clause in it. I think we should have a section in this one that's called continuity clause that just says that I even wrote it down here. Yeah, if the FMP isn't adopted within the time frame specified by the CR, then the most current farm management plan will remain in effect until the new one is adopted, just to sort of cover that base. And that's all I came up with. I'll email this document to you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I had a couple of additional points. I think actually with the first kind of builds on what Ben was saying. I wasn't clear whether this new plan is meant to be a holistic replacement for the 2015 plan. Because if it is, there were other things in 2015 that are not in the new one, like the little section on the history, which, I mean, it's okay, it's not necessarily, it's the past, but I think if we're going to have it as this is the definitive plan, it needs to have everything in it that was in 2015, unless it's no longer relevant. Even if they put it as an appendix, you know, here's the history, you know, you don't necessarily have to have it at the beginning, but just have it as, you know, that, or almost like reference data in some form of appendix, so that we have a single document that says this is a plan. So that was the first thing. Second thing is, I think this speaks to like the trail relocation. I was surprised that there's enough, unless I haven't read it enough detail, there's nothing in there that speaks to that whole area that they were gung-ho to redevelop and put in the extra, the area where the piggies were. They were going to clear it all and make new trails, and it was all going to be, it was all really exciting. Well, where did that go? Which I guess is one specific, but also I think just generally, to me, if this is a 5-year plan, and maybe I'm just a bit, you know, stuck in with the master plan. If this is a 5-year plan, where's the change? Where's the improvement? Where's the growth? You know, or is this just a statement of, well, this is what we're doing today, and if we want to change anything, we'll let you know. It didn't speak to me as being a, hey, this is one of our most important properties and this is what we're going to be doing in the future. But that might just be a personal view of how plans get written, but.
Sorry, maybe I misunderstood, but this is the management plan though, right? I mean, presumably any plans for changes would be a kind of a different document. Did the previous management plan have any indication of like future development activities?
I guess technically not. I think the biggest thing in terms of growth that they could be discussing would be in the programming and farm management in terms of livestock. I think that would be the only discussion. And I guess they talk more about past growth and how they've kind of gotten to where they are now in terms of the amount that they now sell through the CSA and the market there. But I get your point, Judith. I think I guess I just don't know what they would include in the growth aspect of it, because it would just be the livestock or the crops.
Okay. I'm just thinking back to what's changed over the last 7 years. It's like, you know, suddenly there's a deer foot barn appeared and now we need more parking. It's like, I'm kind of find it difficult to believe that suddenly came out of nowhere, because, you know,
well, the barn definitely did, because they were going to tear it down.
But it's a not-for-profit. They have the
strategic plans.
Strategic plan, and it has a capital investment plan. So even if there's a comment in there that says there is no major change to the planned usage of the property, there's no intent to invest, you know, in any other future buildings or expansion, then let's at least have it in there so that we don't in 2 years' time suddenly get faced with this, oh, well, you know, now we want to take away some of the trails and clear the forest and make more, I'm just making this up, more crop area.
No, I get what you're saying.
But I would specifically like to understand what happened to the plans to clear all of the piggy area and make that into nice trails? Because it's a bit clunky to me now when I walk around there. There's this whole area that you can't actually get to.
Okay. Anything else for tonight on that? Great. I will relay this back to DA and the trustees, and depending on what those changes look like, it sounds like it's not incredibly difficult, because I know DA is going out. I think she's having her other knee done. So hopefully, and some other members of the trustees can join at the next meeting, and we can hopefully at least get close to wrapping this up and having the comments from tonight included.
Okay. Let's see. So number 8, S&P bylaw regulation updates and discussion. So you sent around the spreadsheet yesterday, Melissa?
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to look at it, unfortunately.
Right. Do you want me to do a really quick overview?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look at it.
So essentially, I broke down all of the permits minus about 5 that I couldn't find some of the information on that seemed to be all commercial anyways. So I broke down all the permits between residential, commercial, and subdivision, and put in their lot size in disturbance in acres, and then the percent disturbance as well. So as you can find, kind of going through, and maybe it'd be help if I just share it really quickly, is I then sorted them, and Carl sent it back to me, thank you, which I should have done in the first place, was done it by disturbance size from least to most. So this is just residential. So I've highlighted here, if we were to propose that 0.75 acre threshold, these would be the permits from the beginning, from 2008, that wouldn't have required an SMP under new regulations. And out of these, you could say one at least, so the middle road would not have been exempt because it would have been part of a common development. And you could have fought for 17 Oregon, because that was that A&R lot in front of Stonebrook along Oregon Road. So it's not a incredible amount that we would have been exempting if we did just a strict number threshold versus a percentage. And basically it gets rid of applications needing to file that have lot sizes of about 0.6 acres or less, because that's essentially what Residence B is for the most part. It's about 0.6 acres is the minimum lot size. And I didn't get in touch with the assessor today to find out kind of the ratios between Residence A and Residence B. So Residence A, minimum lot size of 1 acre, but Residence A makes up a bigger part of the town than Residence B. So in reality, putting it at the 0.75 kind of is just exempting these really smaller lots. And if anything, 2 of these are actually the same. One just expired. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 of them since 2008. So in almost 15 years, that would have been exempt. So I think that goes to show that it's really not going to exclude a lot of properties if we put it at 0.75. It would definitely exclude a lot more if we were going to do it to 2, then all of these would have been, 1 acre, then all of these would have been exempt, except a couple of them, which would have been in the common development aspect. But it seemed like the 0.75 might be a good kind of way to move forward with that.
How many's on the list?
Melissa, go ahead, Mark.
Uh,
Can I make a point here, just quickly? We would pick up additional ones that would have slipped through our loophole. So
yes.
So we might have, we may lose X number, but we may pick up X over 2 or something like that, because we have many lots that kind of slip through under the loophole we have. So
yeah,
it might work out just about the same.
Yeah, well, we would have gotten Leeds Way would have been one that was a common driveway. All of the ones on Deerfoot essentially would have had a stormwater permit. So more of the A&R common developments, which I think we're going to be seeing more of, even based on a lot of these were just in the past 3 years, the majority of the residential SMP permits. So there's definitely going to be an uptake, I think, looking at some of the trends, and that most of the developable land has already been developed, but there's the larger lot sizes left that have existing homes that are now being demolished, lots split, and then constructed individually. So now those lots will be captured where they hadn't been before, because they would have existing frontage, from that already developed lot.
I think this is great, Melissa. I kind of got it with this and your little description. And I think, we talked about needing to have data that we can share with, other boards as we start to socialize this and, eventually get it in front of town meeting. I mean, this is the sort of information I think that will be really helpful.
Yeah, so I think the one thing we still might want to flesh out is if we want to do kind of what Sherry does in Westboro, is that lower threshold kind of has an administrative approval aspect where it's more just kind of an overview of erosion controls and general kind of management of sediment, not necessarily stormwater, but ensuring that the road, isn't getting inundated with sediment and washout and track out, et cetera. And, abutters aren't getting washed out on their property as well. So it wouldn't require a formal filing, but at least it would give us some enforcement ability if they were to have their site wash out into the road.
Yeah, this is really helpful. I'm gonna play with it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can sort this. So if you need kind of a different copy of it, let me know. If you can't sort it yourself, I'd be happy to do that. And if you need anything else, this comes from my major spreadsheet, so I kind of deleted the things that you didn't need to see. But it's a nice visual. Ironically, the percentages didn't really make as much sense as you would have thought. They weren't very useful. So I think it kind of goes to show that the percentage threshold just doesn't really work in the long scheme. It was really everywhere.
It'd be good to, spin this around on a pie chart or something like that. Graphically depict it.
All right, I'll do my best.
I'll play with it.
Okay.
I can do that.
That's what I do. That kind of stuff.
Pie. You do pie something.
Oh, I do all kinds of presentation charts, graphs, whatever makes it easiest for the executive leadership to understand.
Yeah.
They don't have time for anything. Just, okay, I get it. Then they move on.
Yeah. Show them a shot. Yeah.
Okay. On to other business. We've got the Sears Road SMP that's coming in.
Yes, so we got the formal filing that will be on the 27th for the stormwater. They had, to my understanding, Goddard Consulting go out and delineate what is at least an isolated wetland that's along the Main Street aspect. It sounds like they didn't quite link it as an intermittent stream, but they will be filing something. So I kind of already put a feeler out to Joe and let him know. He took the hard copy, at least, of the stormwater plans today, so he could start taking a general look. But otherwise, we'll have that on dock for the 27th.
I saw the flags
Do
out.
we have a violation here?
So this is where they kind of got stuck in that loophole where they know that if they don't stump, even though, a couple of you said you've seen stumps by the roadway, where our current loophole exists, that's technically not an alteration under our current bylaw.
But it looks like they had tank practice in there,
I mean, they definitely had an excavator going in and tracking everywhere. So in my thought, if you did some serious calculation and took out, yeah, they did.
Did they go in
I-
and did they obliterate the 20-foot?
They definitely obliterated the 20-foot.
Violation.
And because I just submitted the application on Monday, I haven't gone on the site because I didn't quite have permission yet. But and I hadn't seen the pink flags until this week. But we'll see what they come in for us for. They've at least gone up to where the pink flags are. I don't know if they've officially gone into that, but they said it's an isolated area so far.
I'd like to see what Joe finds when he starts digging his auger outside those flags. The other thing I want to say is we're going through the stormwater management now. We have to close this loophole. This is none of us foresaw something like this, coming out of it. We talked about this issue over on Great Neck Hill, I guess. And holy cow, this is we gotta. I think we got to do something about this. I mean,
I think
that land is obviously disturbed and it presents a significant risk for erosion. No question.
Yeah, I think I closed the loophole. I know in the latest draft that I put, I updated the definition and I changed, it was just land disturbance and I changed that to include vegetation disturbance as well. And I updated the definition to specifically and explicitly state removal of trees and vegetation.
Awesome.
And I think in terms of an intermittent stream, if Goddard doesn't find it, I think there's been other filings in the area that have found it in the past.
I will double check through my files. I hadn't found anything yet.
Maybe even 84 Main Street had some information on that at one point in time. Across the way.
All I found from 84 was kind of their stone lined and how that goes directly across, and it wasn't quite off to that end of Main Street.
All right. The next one is the fire department foam.
Yes, so I got a couple of notifications from you guys about the lovely fire department foam while I was out, and the fire chief sent me over the safety data sheet for the foam. So it sounds like they were testing and fixing their foam equipment on one of their trucks, and the weather didn't allow it to dissipate as quickly as they were expecting. So it sounds like they opened the hydrant and it kind of washed into that little wetland system. So looking through the safety data sheet, it's organic materials, but it does say when testing or if there's an accidental release, you are supposed to scoop it up and remove it and block all waterways. It did have a decent half-life, so it did seem like it will dissipate very quickly if it hasn't already. And it is all organic and soluble materials. So in the long run, I don't think this particular instance should have an impact, but I think maybe a statement from the commission to not do it again may be a reasonable expectation.
This is not our bailiwick, right?
What'd you say?
Yeah. Spills, hazardous waste. This is not our thing. We don't get
Wait.
It's not a hazardous. No, it has no hazardous classification.
It definitely says you can't put it into a waterway.
Yeah, you can't jump to hazardous waste from that, though.
Are you sure?
Yeah, did you read the thing?
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have a different conclusion than I've come to.
If you put something into the waterway that says you can't do that.
But the foam itself can't be hazardous, Carl, surely, because it's used to put out fires in properties where people live. So
the foam itself does not have a hazardous classification. So I don't think technically it can be a hazardous spill. So it wouldn't be a spill response.
Okay.
So this is not the first time they've had this large amount of foam in the road. I've driven through it 2 other occasions.
Yeah.
So this is 3 that I know of. And I don't go out as much as I used to anymore because, I'm home. I work from home. I don't have to go anywhere. So I don't know what the weather has to do with the large amount of foam being in the street. But you know, the other 2 times that I went through it, it was not, you know, cold or anything like that. Or it wasn't this time of year. It was, you know, summer or fall or something like that. I can't remember the exact time frame, but I'm thinking that if they have to do this kind of work, that they need to go do it someplace else. You know, they can't be doing it at the fire station, have it run down their driveway, ending up, you know, across the street from the cemetery on Route 85.
I was going to suggest we send them a letter saying, find a location and that's where you test this equipment.
Yes. Test, repair it.
Where it's not going straight into a waterway.
Yeah.
Or anywhere as near it.
Right.
Well, ideally, someplace where it could get into the municipal sewer system so that it's treated that way versus.
You're supposed to build a barrier to contain the material. I mean, in a fire, you can't do that, but it says that you should, you know, trap it and then use an absorbent material to pick it up at the end.
Golf course parking lot.
Pardon me?
Oh, no, that'll find its way in the catch basin up in the detention basin.
Very good, Ben.
So, yeah, I agree with Sherry. We should send them a letter that you know, they need to find something. Now, unfortunately, that, you know, all the drain structures that we have in Southborough end up finding their way into, you know, the reservoir or some wet area, or, you know, we don't have a sewer system that accepts that. It takes it.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking Westboro. Forget
Yeah,
you guys.
yeah. Now there are a couple of places in town that have their own sewer systems. Like
Everything leads to the reservoir in town, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every single thing, every outfall.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
That's their issue.
Eventually, yeah, exactly. Maybe they have to go over to Marlboro to fix their truck. I don't know. But it's happened a few times that I'm aware of.
Right. I will send
At
them a
least 3
letter.
that I know of, including this one.
Maybe here's the thought. Maybe they could go to the old, the what's now the Harvard Book Repository, because they've still got all of those concrete pads there. Have them go and test it out
Interesting.
there.
There you go. We'll let them find a spot.
Yeah.
It's there.
But yeah, that's a good option. That is a good amount of cement too. Asphalt.
Okay. So Melissa, I believe you know what the contents of the letter need to be.
Yep. Yep. I will do that.
All right. You see Breakneck Hill dump update. I understand that the circuit leader there has finally touched base with Mark Purple and they provided some comments back.
Yes, so I uploaded the email from Doug Fine from DEP to the Dropbox, along with our assessment plan, our draft assessment plan that we had submitted to them. So their comments came back. I guess I won't go over them explicitly because I don't necessarily understand the full extent of asbestos removal and all that fun stuff. But they just had some additional requirements that they wanted to see in terms of testing and kind of oversight to make sure that what was being taken out, if any additional reporting needs to happen, that is mitigated. So Taylor at TRC is working on updating the final site assessment plan and also getting us some numbers to implement the assessment plan and also a rough estimate on what the total cost cleanup would be, with the understanding that obviously we won't be able to have a final number until the site assessment is done, because that will tell us kind of what's there and how much of it is there. But the goal with at least getting some of those preliminary numbers is if we need to get something into the town meeting warrant, then we would have a better ability to at least start on getting some funding for the site assessment or possibly even for the cleanup portion. So we are working on that. Ultimately, it does sound like we will be entering administrative consent order. That just helps us with deadlines and securing funds at town meeting. It gives us a little bit more leverage. along with DEP also, it does give us deadlines, but DEP seemed understanding the fact that we have a spring town meeting and not always a fall town meeting. And that our, if the town meeting in March isn't pushed off, the warrant is almost closed soon. So if we don't get that placeholder in, in the next week or so, then we're kind of in a waiting game, which they were kind of understanding based on the fact that, it took them a little bit to get the comments back to us as well. So that seems to be on a good path forward. And once we get kind of the final assessment plan, I will give you guys an update.
Okay. I lost my notes. Oh, here we go. Okay, a couple of last minute info items.
Yes.
So does the select board is asking conservation to attend a future meeting to discuss part-time hours?
Yep. So I think this will be kind of the standard meeting that some of you have attended in the past. They did a big list of kind of the extra funds that various departments have requested, and we were on that list for the part-time hours. So once we have a date and time, I would let you guys know if there's any of you that are willing to attend the meeting. Obviously I will try and attend as well. I know usually they conflict with my town Concom meetings, but I would expect it would be the same conversation that we've kind of had in the past, just reiterating our needs for extra admin help.
Okay, so we don't know when this meeting is at this point, just sometime in the future.
Yep. So keep that in your minds. If any of you are willing to kind of rep that, then let me know, and I'll be sure to make sure you're doubly involved.
Yeah, sure. If I have enough notice on a Tuesday, I can readjust some things and probably can attend.
Right.
But if it's last minute,
I'll
be able
come
to
as
do it.
well. I think Ben and I did the last one, didn't we? So
I think so.
Yeah, I think you and Ben tag time last time, Judith.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, planning board would like to know if the commission has interest in being required approval for scenic tree removal.
Yes, and I do see Mimi in the attendees. I don't know if she is willing to give us a quick update. If so, use the raise hand and I'll let you talk. But otherwise, they are creating a scenic tree bylaw. And essentially, actually, she raised her hand, so I'm going to allow her to do a quick overview. All right, Mimi, you should be able to unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. So in 2019, Southborough became a tree city, and town meeting adopted that. And that obligated the town to comply with Mass General Laws, Chapter 87, which deals with public shade trees. Since that time, there's been some misunderstanding as to what the town's obligations are in the treatment of public shade trees, more specifically public hearings. So the planning board is working on a tree bylaw to kind of be more explicit in what the town's obligations are and to alleviate any misunderstandings. And when I was writing the bylaw, which is coming before the planning board on Monday, I noticed several towns referenced conservation commissions in this process, in that any trees that were public shade trees that were on either conservation land or within the wetland setback would require a public hearing consolidated with the tree ward and the conservation commission. And I reached out to Melissa and know that you have a process and didn't know whether you wanted to be included in the bylaw or not. I certainly don't want to create a solution in search of a problem, but if this makes sense to the commission, then we'll keep that in there.
Yeah, and what essentially I was discussing with Mimi is that, we have kind of that administrative process for hazardous tree removals, which I think many of the tree hearings, and Mimi, correct me if I'm wrong, most likely would be. So many of the requirements are the same in terms of the arborist report and kind of plan on removal. The ones that still would be like roadway projects and larger projects that are within our jurisdiction obviously would still come in front of you. But it's more so kind of, I think, would catch more of the utility exemptions that we do have. So that's kind of the biggest thing that maybe would be the difference for the commission.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I would think that anything that, falls within, sort of our jurisdictional purview would make sense that we'd be involved. Anybody disagree?
No, I don't know.
Just a question. So if this were to go through, that would that change our jurisdiction? Would it grow it, or would it, or wouldn't it already be covered?
I guess that's what confuses me also. I mean, if it's already in our jurisdiction, it would come in front of us anyway, right?
So I think so with the majority of the being hazardous trees, we deal with that through the office. So I think the big difference would be that you guys would be having more hearings and approving a lot more tree removal, for kind of single tree removals throughout town.
Melissa,
along the road.
The one thing I know, the town takes trees along the road down all the time, right? And they have a right to do that, right? As I understand, right?
But if they're on a scenic, road, then they need to have a tree hearing.
Okay, so this is going to be
Any right of way requires a tree hearing, not just scenic roads.
Yes.
Even for an obviously
no,
dead
it doesn't,
tree.
it doesn't require. I don't think if it's next to a wetland, they're required to come and see us, right?
So if it's right, so utility companies are typically exempt. We just get the notification. And, we have some kind of enforcement if something goes wrong, but not necessarily any say. So that would probably be the majority, but this would ultimately give you the authority to talk about utilities, because I think, Mimi, what you were saying is that they're not exempt under this bylaw.
When you say utility, that include the DPW and their tree removal? Would that be the
DPW, National Grid, etc.
So we would have a new role in this, right?
Yes.
This would expand our role.
Yep.
DPW isn't gonna like us.
When would this bylaw go into effect?
Hopefully it's coming before Springtown meeting.
This on a completely sub note, if it's on, might be another way to broach that we need more help from Melissa. Another thing to investigate.
We're gonna hear you again.
Yeah.
I was trying to say tactfully that this might be another way to present to the select board that we need more and maybe help for Melissa's office. How we're doing this and bringing this before the commission and having videos or photos or whatever. That's the back end of it. Melissa would have to do. So it would be another way to just say that she needs more help. Where we're being asked to do more, so she's doing
Happy to help you get a part-timer.
Thanks, Mimi.
So when someone needs to remove a tree, DPW or otherwise, we're saying they would have to come in front of us at a hearing. They would also have to come in front of another board or only us?
So they would also
it depends.
Yeah, but most likely, so Scenic roads is tree warden, well, sometimes tree warden, a joint hearing between the tree warden and the planning board as of right now, depending on the health of the tree or what the tree warden's finding is. So that would also include Concom in this joint hearings.
Oh,
How
so
many
the
scenic
joint
roads do
hearing.
we have in Southborough?
What was that?
How many scenic roads do we have in Southborough? I mean, is this,
Like 19?
I know Middle
But
Road
it's-
is absolutely beautiful, but you know. Did you hear my question? I don't know.
Yeah, the answer was 19.
19.
Oh,
Or
19.
17. 17, 19, something like that.
Oh.
But it's not just scenic roads, it's all public shade trees that are in right-of-ways. But scenic roads require a consolidated hearing with the tree warden and the planning board. Non-scenic roads is just a tree warden unless it's within the jurisdiction of the Concom, which would require a consolidated hearing with the tree warden and the Concom.
So
this-
these are primarily, you know, trees that are in the roadway right of way that is on town property that are diseased or defective in some way that are being proactively selected to be removed. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, for any reason that they
Yeah.
want to be
Yeah,
removed.
it could be for safety,
Mhm.
something like that.
So-
The reason why I throw the conservation hat in the ring here is that you know, we hold our individual homeowners to this level of a standard to come in front of us and kind of prove to us that their tree is diseased and needs to be cut down when it's associated in close proximity to the wetland. And it seems that, you know, not holding, you know, ourselves, the town, to the same level is not right in my mind. And the other thing I would wonder is what happens in the event of a, you know, of a storm, right? So you have trees down all over town, wires down all over town. I can't imagine that they're going to wait for, you know, a hearing to be able to remove those trees to be able to get, you know, the roadways passable again, that they're just going to go ahead and do it.
Right, well, there's an exemption in the bylaw for
that?
For storms, yeah,
Okay, okay.
emergency removals.
Yeah, all right.
So just to be, so I am clear, is this all trees or just trees that are associated within the wetland buffer that we are engaged in?
The ones that I'm talking about in this bylaw that the Conservation Commission would be engaged in are trees within the town right of way, which are considered public shade trees that are also under the jurisdiction of the Concom. Either within a wetland buffer or within a wetland.
It's not every tree that they want to cut down. Okay.
But the rest of the trees within the right of way would be either all would be under tree warden and some under tree warden and planning board. But it's just the trees within the right of way that this bylaw addresses.
So does anybody have a, you know, any reservations of including the Conservation Commission?
Mimi, would we have to post a public hearing notice in the paper separately? Do you know?
For the consolidated hearings?
Yeah.
It's the tree warden's
Okay.
job to post the hearings.
Okay, so we would just have to have the commission at that joint hearing. That would be the major change.
Yes.
Okay.
I would think that he would attend your hearing.
Oh, so they would be posted it, but we could technically do it at one of our regular scheduled meetings. We wouldn't
Yes.
have to have it separate. Okay.
Yeah.
So a question on delineation of wetlands with these trees. How would that, you know, we say it is, they say it isn't. You know, is the DPW going to have a budget to delineate wetlands when they want to cut down trees?
I would assume 99% of it's just going to be based on GIS.
Okay.
Oh, Mimi's question is, include conservation or not? Do we need to take a vote? Because I'm hearing two sides of the coin here. Sounds like Carl thinks no. I'm seeing others in other head, yes.
No, I'm
So
actually
what-
not opposed to it.
what-
I'm just wondering about the mechanics, that's all. I'm thinking.
Well, I think like with anything, we'd have to work out some of the logistics. So and we just ask the question, is anybody opposed? Okay. All right, so Mimi, there you have it.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Happy
Yep.
New Year, everyone.
Same to you.
Thank you for coming, Mimi.
Thanks, Melissa, for your help.
Okay, we had some RDAs that we need to go back and vote on before we can,
Just the SMP. The RDA is one vote. We issued the negative with conditions.
oh, that's right, okay.
So the SMP I just has as the standard special conditions, and I just added about the excess erosion controls at the end to be stored on site at all times. I can pull it up on the screen if you want, but there's nothing too exciting there.
I'm just looking for my notes I took, so,
This is for 75 School Street.
right, yep, got it. Yeah, okay, that was the only note I had.
And I also have the note because we had one public comment. So Eric Bertnazzi's comment is in there as well.
Okay, do I hear a motion to issue the stormwater permit as amended?
So moved.
I hear a second? Okay, Sherry seconded.
All right, Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes,
All right, I think that's all I have, guys.
okay. Phew. Given that, do I
Starting
hear a
the year
motion?
off strong.
Yeah. Given that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes.
All right.
Russ, you're gonna get some sleep before you go out plowing?